Hi, I'm Angified. I started Angified Presents.
We share the love of music.
It has been medicine and therapy. Nothing else worked.
It has saved many of us. With mental health, we need to open our eyes.
Hurt people.
We ask that you listen, comprehend, and relate with your ears.
Form that heart of unity and one.
We share on this stage.
Statistics, feelings.
And ourselves.
We stand with the belief to be you, to be heard, and to be original.
We all may be different, with opinions and beliefs.
At the end of the day, we are all brothers and sisters.
We are family.
We ask that you join us in a magical journey with artists from around the world. Open your minds, let in the love,
and listen with your hearts.
We all want a better tomorrow. Be one.
Communicate and look out for one another. And then, and only then, will you find the world.
We will find peace in all the world.
You'll find the world. And you will find in this giant world. He was among us in every boy and girl. Many have been broken, red hearts turn black. Love will melt the ice and turn it back, and you will find the world. You will find the world. You will find the world. And when you find a place called home, where everyone is free to roam, a whole new world, a better place for our children's futures at stake. And you'll find, with music in your soul, laughter in your hearts, together we can grow a better place, with love in us all. And you will find, together we can save it all. And you will find a place called home, where everyone is free to roam, a better place, a whole new world for our children's future.
Rawr.
We cover digital audio workstations and music tools. We explore theory, gear, and MIDI too. How to arrange, compose, and the art of arranging. Taking a look at AI and how the times have changed. On a PC or a Mac and even with a mobile device, we'll be talking about it all every Thursday night. From software to plugins and synths that entice. Dive deep into tech and let creativity take flight. Talkin IT. We're talking IT. Come and join in and have some fun. It's highly educational with a lot to learn. From bedroom producers to seasoned pros, we're breaking it down so knowledge grows. Whether you're a DJ or a beat making wizard, we got the tips and tricks to make your sound sizzle. Mixing and mastering, that's our jam. With the tutorials and tips on how much rap. Get the best quality from your setup and gear. Tune in every week and lend us your ear. We're talking IT. Come and join in and have some fun. It's highly educational with a lot to learn. We're talking We're talking IT. We're talking IT. Every Thursday night on Angified.
Sometimes it's just meant to be.
Hello there.
There he is.
Glenn's back.
I'm
Glenn's
back. And it's holiday
back.
season. Holiday season for everybody. So we had a little grab bag stuff, a little something for everybody, right?
Yeah, we're digging
Gotta
into
cover it all.
We're digging into the watch later stocking. There's a whole bunch of surprises tonight.
Mm-hmm. Little for this, little for that. Maybe some drum stuff, maybe some vocal stuff, maybe some DAW stuff. All kinds.
Actually, a little bit of all of that. And the drum stuff at the end is going to be interesting. It's drummers with weird techniques.
Weirder than that?
No, drummers who play with their fingers is weird techniques.
Little chiclet keys. They're tiny little keys, so don't have a lot of expressive range on those. It's you hit it or you don't. So,
well, with the little keys, technically your fingers, you become John Bonham when you're playing with the little keys.
Yep. You got to really get on there. Got to get right in there.
Yeah, you get
easy to do with big fingers either.
Well, and hard to get the same kind of Bonham bang.
Absolutely, tough to get consistent.
All right, let's see what we've got for tonight.
The gifts.
Yeah. I wanted to start Creative Sauce. You know, Mike. You know, this is a channel that we've gone to for cakewalk tips and studio advice, and I felt this is fitting to get started because it's that time of year where you're might be looking for gifts for musicians, and what makes a good gift for a musician. And he keeps it under $100, reasonably priced, because music gear can get up there.
Oh yeah.
And that one's going to be coming from Creative Sauce.
Very cool.
And I couldn't resist this one because there's some cool stuff in here. There's a little science in some of these things that Emily Hopkins was checking out, and she spent a year searching for the weirdest music tech. And there's some weird stuff in here, but very cool.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not just for musicians.
Always a fan of whether it's gadgets or weird tech or new tech, any of that kind of thing. Always a fan.
You're gonna like some of these crazy things she found. That's Emily Hopkins.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and are you familiar with a Dan Bao? Dan Bao, I think that's how they say it. It's a Vietnamese instrument, and Nicholas Brass is going to show how he rolled his own one of these. And if we're looking at weird instruments and things like that, this is a new one for me. I mean, I've heard the sound before, but never
Yeah, that's the thing.
associated it.
I'm sure I would recognize the sound, but probably never saw the instrument itself. Just heard it in a sound pack or something, that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's got a very cool sound.
It almost looks like a wooden sword at that angle.
Yeah, well, wait till you see it all done. And this one, a lot of people recommend Macs for music machines, and there's some truth in that they do make great music machines. There's a lot of pluses. There's more benefits than negative reasons to use a Mac as a music machine, but I found this an interesting one because the M3 Pro and the M2 Pros and the M1s, which Mac you get, if you're going to get a music machine, you're going to want to pay attention to some of the things that he's found. This is James Zahn, and not all M chips are created equal when it comes to music making.
Yeah. And I mean, we've seen similar things with the RTX and the graphics cards, and how, this generation of the RTX cards isn't necessarily the place to jump in because of certain changes that are happening very quickly in the industry. And I think we're going to see more of that coming up. But yeah, the newest doesn't always necessarily mean the best like it used to. It used to just be, a couple of years later, that whatever you're going to get is that much better than before. But depending on your application, you might be better off with the last model or the model before.
Yeah, and it's the same thing on the Intel side when it comes to the i5s versus the i7s. How many CPUs versus cores? A lot of this stuff relates on both sides. Oh, exactly. And I think you're gonna like this one because the base of the future is here, Glenn.
Nice.
And
I was looking at a couple bases today.
Yeah, the channel basetheworld.com. So I found a base channel.
Nice. Excellent. I was looking at a couple bases today. I saw some what do we have? They said some six string Ibanez's there. I was looking at. I was like, oh.
You going?
Had to start looking at the six
Strings, huh? Skipping right over the fives.
well, five's what I use already, so five's what I'm used to. But and I know what a 4 is all about. So like looking at the 6s is something new, and just seeing how much bigger the fretboard is compared to my 5, and it's not undoable for sure.
Well, I'm curious as to what unique features this is going to have that make it the base of the future.
Yeah, I like it,
because that's a pretty tall statement.
Indeed.
Oh, and I can't resist Rick Beato if if he's talking about anything interesting, and this is really interesting. We look at AI and how it incorporates with music, and Rick went to a Senate hearing on AI. They just recently had one, and I think it's really cool that they brought in, people like Rick to testify as to, how AI and the music industry and what's going on with it and how it's going to affect things. So I'm really curious to see, Rick's take in front of the Senate here.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, AI is one of those fields that people from all around need to weigh in, and having opinions from all over is good. And Rick is a great resource for sure when it comes to music.
He has opinions.
There's no doubt about that.
Yeah. And we've talked about song parts in the past, and techniques to transitioning between parts and how to make it seamless. So I thought this was a great one to add in here on 5 easy tricks for seamless transitions between song sections.
Nice.
And Music by Maddie. This is a channel that we've been checking out the last couple of months, and great advice from Maddie.
Yep. And I was just thinking about that exact subject the other day when we were writing some songs out in at the studio in Pennsylvania, where we started just going through and just get something recorded. Like we had something that we were going around with, just a simple 3-chord thing or 4-chord thing, to get a piece of it recorded. And then it's okay, what would we do after that? And we thought about, what would a chorus be like? And so you try to think of that, and then you get that and say, okay, record a little piece of that. And then okay, so like, we just get those little pieces put down, and then we can always shuffle them around and change it. Maybe the chorus becomes the verse later. It depends on how the song turns around. But it's good to think about songs in those ways and making sure you focus on different sections.
Yeah, yeah. And nowadays we try to make more progressive parts and changes, and the more complex and progressive you get, the trickier it can be to create that seamless transition. So
yeah, you don't want it to be jarring for sure.
Yeah, we're going to see some tips on making it more seamless.
Mm-hmm.
And another theme that we have discussed several times over the past couple of months, setting your volume, especially when it comes to guitar. A couple weeks ago, or Matt, actually it was last week, while you were gone, Ange was doing some reviews Wednesday and Thursday, and there was a song where everything sounded great, but the guitar and the tone was just a smidge louder than everything else. And for this killer guitar tone, what was happening is the music was getting buried under it. And I got a message from him after the show that he had heard my suggestion, and he went and remixed it, brought the guitar back a little bit, and got everything to fit nice together.
Nice.
And Steve Stein, our Guitar Nights, is where I found this channel, and Steve Stein Guitar Lessons. He's gonna give us some tips on your volume, your tone for a killer performance.
Nice, very cool.
Oh, and just this screenshot alone tempted me towards
Christmas
this
time.
video. Well, yes, if anybody wants to get me a Christmas present, it's on that table.
Indeed.
And this is a little different than MIDI controllers, and typically we're looking for controllers as instruments, and to hit keys and have the knobs and things like that. This is more centered towards DAW control, because some of us still like to feel our sliders, feel the knobs, and I've gotten used to doing it with the mouse, but I really would like a nice surface controller, one that reacts to my changes on the screen, makes the screen change. We're going to look at some of the cool controllers that are out there to control Cakewalk and Reaper and any DAW that you're using.
One tip I would have is anybody, if they're using a pad or a phone or whatever, anything, if you're using a screen and you're trying to do touch screen and trying to adjust levels and things, using something like a stylus can help a lot, because trying to use your finger, a lot of times you'll end up, skitter, getting jitter or whatever, or you bounce up and down, or you can't get a smooth roll. The other thing is using the stylus and rolling the stylus, the tip of it, rather than trying to hit the pad and then slide it up, hit the pad and then kind of roll it on its side, and that way you can very gently move it up and down. That makes a big difference in trying to do fine controls when you're working with a pad or a surface or a phone and trying to do adjustments on something like a fader, for example.
Oh yeah, and a lot of times you're looking for precise, settings, and those micro settings like negative 1.5 decibels. The stylus does help, especially with the touch screens, but physical knobs and sliders, still, I hold them to my heart dearly.
Yeah. Another thing I see people do is if it's a knob that's like just a regular dial knob, like you turn it up or you turn it down. If you're doing it on a screen, if you're trying to adjust it like that, it's not really the same thing. You're not trying to twist it the way you would twist a regular knob. You're just trying to hit it and go up or down. You're saying select that and go up
or
go
left and right, depending on
less or more. Yeah. But you're not trying to go around is the main thing. Because if you're trying to go around the top, it's going to start, you're going to get part way there and it's going to come back and you're going to get really frustrated trying to make it adjust.
Yep. So the Lonely Rocker is going to show us some cool surface controllers. And to top it all off, couldn't ignore the drummers. I'm really getting ready for a drum night, and I almost was going to make tonight a drum night. I'd like to see if I can pull some drummers in, from the lab to really do a good justice to drums. But I couldn't resist this one because 66 Samus is going to talk about 10 great drummers with weird techniques. And these are the kinds of things that separate, your average drummer from your great drummer, is the unusual techniques that some of them have, and what are those techniques.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we gotta check that out.
Plus, he looks like a dude I would hang out with.
Indeed. Very much so.
So to get started, let's take a look at some gifts that might, help those who are shopping for their musician family or friends. And this one comes from Creative Sauce. Mike over at Creative Sauce. He's had a hell of a year. He's changed studios, and he's dealing with that. Like Cakewalk is, going back to a paid product in Sonar. And, I've been keeping up with him, and the last 6 months has been quite a transition for him.
Mm-hmm. Big changes.
But you can find him at Creative Sauce over on YouTube. And he does have a website too.
Mm-hmm.
He's got a Patreon, creativesauce.net. Hey, he's even over on Facebook, and he's using that X that formerly was known as Twitter.
Uh-huh. Nice.
It's good to see some of the musicians getting back on there. And this is a great channel for anybody who wants general studio advice. If you do use Cakewalk, this was the first channel on YouTube that I went to really step up my advanced Cakewalk knowledge.
Mm-hmm. Solid stuff for sure. I mean, I remember, like you said, checking out some of those early ones, and also just ones that are a general overview, and just watching the workflow. It can be very helpful.
Yeah, he's great at displaying it and going through it. And here he's going to play Santa Claus.
For the top 5 gifts for musicians under $100.
Your loved one is a musician and you want to get a great gift, or you're a musician who wants to drop some serious hints this season, listen up as I give you my top 5 gifts for musicians under $100. Hi folks, I'm Mike, and I hope you're well. Not only did I want to give you 5 great gift ideas, I wanted to make sure they're all great quality and under $100. In fact, 2 of them are less than $70. Talking about saving money, I'd like to thank the sponsor for this video, DistroKid. If you follow the VIP link for them in the description down below, you'll get a further 7% off of an already incredible price for distributing music. You could say that they're in tune with the modern musician's needs, just like our first gift. This is a high quality guitar worth thousands of dollars, but it can still sound awful if it's out of tune. That's where our first gift comes in. This is the Peterson Strobo Clip HD guitar tuner. Simply clips onto the end of the guitar here, and then when the player plays a string, it'll tell them how much that string is out of tune, whether it needs to go up or down, etc. Now, you will see a lot of guitar tuners like this out there that clip onto the end of the guitar, and some of them will cost like $10 or $15. They are not in the same league as this guitar tuner whatsoever. Peterson are well known for very, very accurate tuners. That's why people buy them. Apart from that, the build quality is awesome. When you clip it onto your guitar, it's got a nice sort of rotating mechanism. You can face it exactly towards yourself. It's got a really bright display, so if the musician is gigging and playing in the dark, they can see it really, really clearly. And it's got around about sort of 50 different tunings in there, so it's not just for regular guitar tunings. There's lots of different guitar tunings, bass tunings, all kinds of orchestra instruments, etc. I have been using this for around about a year now, and it's the only tuner I use despite having a drawer full of tuners. It's just wonderful, wonderful design, wonderful quality, and costs less than $60. Whenever I'm asked about studio microphones for less than $100, I always recommend this one. This is the Audio-Technica AT 2020, and there's two reasons I recommend it. Firstly, because I think it's a fantastic microphone, and secondly, because my viewers think it's a fantastic microphone. I did a blind test with this microphone and two other more expensive microphones, and my viewers consistently picked this one as the better sounding microphone. That says a lot. Now, I have to tell you, I have microphones in my studio which have a value of more than 20 to 30 times this microphone, but I would still happily use this on any of my recordings. Now, this one happens to be white, but you can get it in black as well, and it costs just $99 US. Back to more guitar accessories. This time I have the G7 Performance 3 capo. This is a gold one here, which has a nice bling factor to it. What does the capo do? Well, let's say I've learned a song with some particular chord shapes like so, but I need to play it in a different key. I can just take my capo, move it to a different position like so, and then play the same chord shapes, but it's in a different key. Now, experienced guitar players may have noticed something here. Firstly, I moved it from one position to another really, really easily. Secondly, after I did it, there was no fret buzz or nasty noises or anything like that, and the guitar is still in tune. I didn't even have to grab my tuner to check it. This is really unusual for capos. If you've been using capos for years, you will know that these are the problems we most often associate with them. They can be fiddly to use, they can be slow to use, especially if you're performing on stage. They almost always put your guitar out of tune, and you often get these sort of fret buzzes. Now, what makes this one so special? There's a special mechanism under here which makes sure that the capo kind of shapes itself to the shape of your guitar neck, and it sort of exerts just the right amount of pressure so you don't get those buzzes and things. Really, really simple and easy to use. Now, it's a lot more expensive than most guitar capos because of that, and because this one is gold and a bit blingy, it costs $90. However, if you want to get one that's in black or in silver, I think you can get them for $70. I think a guitarist would have this in their possession for years, if not decades, and I think it's well worth it for the headaches which it solves. Now, if you're a musician and you want to make sure that your Santa Claus gets to see this video, make sure you share it. Perhaps you could share it on your Facebook page or what have you. Talking about sharing, our sponsor for today's video, DistroKid, has some great sharing features for when you release your music. This is the hyperfollow page for one of my EPs, Wonderland. When people visit this web page, they can choose for themselves which one of these great platforms they want to listen to my music on. But I didn't have to create this page. It was generated automatically for me when I uploaded my EP to DistroKid. If we visit my DistroKid page here and look at this EP and scroll down, you can see the section just at the bottom here where they supply the link for me to share. Now, I can share that on places like Facebook, where there will automatically be generated my album artwork, and people can just click on this and go straight to that hyperlink page. Now, this is all included with the base price of DistroKid, which is just $19.99 per year. If you follow the link in the description, you'll get 7% off of that already great price. In the modern home recording studio, more and more of the sounds are coming from the computer itself. So I'm talking about pianos, drums, orchestras, that kind of thing. These are called virtual instruments. Now, one of the frustrations when you're a beginner and you're just setting up your studio is not having a keyboard, a piano keyboard, to play those sounds with. If you don't have that, then it can be very frustrating and time consuming. That's why I'm recommending the Micro Lab from Arturia. This is a nice mini keyboard. It's got 25 keys. It's got these neat sliders on there, these sort of touch sensitive sliders which control modulation and pitch bend. It's easy to hook up to the computer to control those sounds. Doesn't need an external power supply. It just runs off of USB, and it's nice and small, so it'll actually fit easily like in a backpack or something for mobile musicians. I can highly recommend Arturia. They've got great quality keyboard. So this would be a great gift at $69. However, if you are able to go a little bit above our budget of $100 that we set for this video, I just want to recommend to you this keyboard. This is the Arturia Mini Lab 3. It's a new keyboard from Arturia. It's got the keys on it, just like the Micro Lab has, but it's also got some drum pads on there as well, and a few more knobs and sliders and things like that to control those instruments. This is being sold for around about $109 at the moment. So if you can go just a little bit over that budget, this is well worth it. Again, runs off of USB, doesn't need any sort of external power supply or anything like that. No doubt your musician loved one already has a fancy smancy pair of headphones. Perhaps they've got some Beats or some Bose or something else beginning with B. And although they may have cost quite a lot of money, I'm afraid to say they're not that useful in the studio. They tend to make everything sound good, which weirdly in the studio we don't really want. We want headphones which are honest so that we can easily hear errors in our mix and correct them. That's why we need studio headphones, and that sounds expensive, right? Well, not so. A lot of studio headphones are actually quite a lot cheaper than some popular consumer headphones these days. So I'm going to recommend these headphones as a gift. These are the Sony MDR 7506s. They do have that more honest sound. They're really comfortable, which is important when you're wearing them for hours in the studio. And they've also got good isolation. You don't tend to hear the music coming out of them so much, and that's a problem in the studio because music coming out of the headphones will go into the microphone. That's not what we want. Now, you don't need to take my word for it because these headphones have been used in studios for many, many years now, and I'm talking top professional studios. So these really are a great buy at just $99. Now, another option is to buy software as a gift. Musicians use something called plugins in conjunction with their music software to create and adapt sounds. I've made a video about my favorite 5 plugins for 2022. You can watch this right here. Now, most of these plugins work with most recording software, so you've got a pretty safe bet if you buy it as a gift. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I wish you a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Oh, I'm going to send that video to Santa.
Yep. Uni's saying those are the headphones he uses. Those are the headphones I'm wearing right at this moment. I've worn these headphones for years. Can't say enough good things about them.
Oh, you're a Sony guy, huh?
Yeah, I've been wearing, this is, I think, my second pair, the pair before I had for years before that.
Well, shit, for under $100, I'd get 2 of them too.
Yeah. The that capo that he was talking about, the G7 capo, that's the exact capo I have also. Like, I don't really use a capo that much, and I don't play guitar that much, but when I do, I still don't use a capo much. But when I got that one, I did see how much of a difference there was between that one and regular capos, because that fret buzz thing that he's talking about, that's a very real thing. And this one is just well put together, very simple. You saw him move it with one hand very easily. That's not a gimmick. That's just the way the capo is. So can't say enough good things about that one either.
Yeah, I like that he emphasized not all capos are created equal, and it's worth stretching a little bit more. Same with that Arturia. I would go with the 100, and I would put the extra $9 in on my $100 budget just to get those drum pads and those extra little knobs and things. That's a very cheap, cost-efficient controller. Something we're going to be looking at a little bit later on.
And all those extra knobs, like you're talking about, that's the physical knobs, not a screen, actual knobs that you can twist and turn.
Yep. Yeah. And his mic recommendation, another one, when you're going under $100, there's a lot of mic options out there these days, but the sound quality, like he mentioned, it equates to mics that are much more expensive, and it still sounds just as good.
That's the main thing. Is it's encouraging to hear that there still are, inexpensive options that still sound good.
Yeah, Audio-Technica
have to be a super expensive mic.
Yeah, they've been at it for a long, long time. So that was Mike at Creative Sauce. Awesome channel. Like his banner says, home recording gear reviews, DAW plugin reviews. I'm going to be checking out his plugins for 2023. Exactly. Always trust his advice. He's a great resource.
Yep. Been checking them out for a while.
So now that we've gotten, some ideas on traditional gifts for musicians, we're going to take a look at some weird music tech.
Weird is good. I like gadgets and all kinds of stuff like that, whether it's pedals or capos, all kinds of things. Crazy stuff.
And she's a harpist. She makes cool harp videos. Nice. So if there's any fans of the harp out there, at Emily Harpist, check out this channel.
Mm-hmm.
But what she's going to be looking at here is, she spent a year searching for the weirdest music tech, and she's going to show us what she came up with, what she found.
And it's a noble search.
And there's some science. There's some science in some of these.
Science is always good. The weirdest music tech.
A year ago, I ordered this thing, and it just arrived today. There's not many of them that exist out there, and it's definitely one of the weirdest pieces of audio technology that I have in my studio. There's a special fluid inside of this that reacts to sound, and when I ordered it, I wanted to know if there were other things out there that were almost as weird as this, but could be used to actually make music. For the past few months, boxes have been arriving to the studio filled with weird instruments, and I have no idea what's inside them. Russ has been keeping them a secret from me, so I'm excited to spend the entire day discovering them. But I'm not just gonna make some silly, strange sounds for you. I'm gonna show you some practical ways that you can use these instruments. I'm gonna be watching some video game footage without any sound, and I'll be writing my own soundtrack to it without knowing what the real soundtrack sounds like. But for each soundtrack I cook up, I have to use one of these weird instruments as the secret sauce.
Alright, so for this one, you have to use what's inside this box.
Okay, what is this? What the fuck? What is this? What? Drone generator. Oh, that's a good sound. We hear a drone going. Oh, yes. Wow. Also, it masks all my tinnitus. Can't hear anything in there. Ready?
Yep.
Oh. I feel like it would be cool to make something like slower pace but still keep the intensity, because that's scary as shit. Holy.
Can you believe they covered that lady in ketchup?
So I put something together with my Moog synths that I think will work well for this. I have a feeling that this drone is going to sound great when sent through a distortion and a reverb, so I'm going to send it through the Old Blood Noise screen violence. Right now I have all these drones on lock so that they're not constantly making sound. They only make sound when these are pushed. So with screen violence, they sound like this. And I'm going to use the sensor at the top to modulate it. I got some creepy string samples set up, and I'm going to run them through the Mood Mark II to make them sound like this. Alright, so here's the full track that I put together. Oh, damn. Oh, damn. This is scary as shit. It's really fucking good. Okay. Star Song. Oh. What is that? What? Wow. 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 What the little knobs. It comes with a CD-ROM, optical disc, We don't even have a computer that allows discs anymore.
That's not a CD-ROM.
It's... What? They left a Sharpie in here, too. Whatever it is, it's beautifully made.
Star Song is a music sequencer and synthesizer controlled by a rotating optical disc. Additional optical discs are sold separately.
I'm pausing this for a second. Who the fuck thought of this? This is wild. So I got this thing set up. The way this works is that you take a little dry erase marker, right? You mark the notes that you want, and then this little light sensor will like read it and play the notes. If you press the left corner, it starts the sequence. And if you press the right corner, it reverses the sequence. And this wheel controls the speed. Ooh, I like the guns. This game is... I might get this game, actually. Desolate and, like, dark. It's gonna be fun. Oh, shit! That's a big boss. Look at that big boy. I'm trying to create, like, an uneasy ambience for this piece. Since this sounds a little bit too 8-bitty for what we're going for this game, I'm gonna run it through some effects first and make it sound more ambient. So let's see what we got right now. I'd be shitting my pants right now. Next, I'm gonna make some random percussive sounds using this Dreadbox synth. I wanna make the low strings of my harp sound like a synth. So for that, I'm gonna use the Tars fuzz, and I'm gonna send that into the JHS octave reverb. Without any effects, my harp's bass strings sound like this. And then through these pedals, it's gonna sound like this. Then I'm gonna play some higher harp notes and swell them into screen violence using the onset pedal. Okay, so here's the track. Yeah, this is like ambient. This is very moody. Very good. So I'm gonna be honest with you. We got a package and I opened it without knowing that it was a secret sauce ingredient. So here it is. Here's the third secret sauce. It's a diddly bow. It's a 1-string instrument. It's got a pickup here, an output here. And yeah, I'm sorry. I ruined the surprise. Oh, you play as the monster. I'm gonna love this. This is gonna be like industrial. Needs to be cold sounding. Cause this guy's not fucking around. This boss is not fucking around. He's killing everyone. oh, and then he loves ketchup too. I gotta get this game. Holy shit. So I got my Moog synths back out, and I think I made a beat that works pretty good for this. I want to get like a massive sound in the bass, so I'm gonna try the Old Blood Noise Beam Splitter. Beam Splitter is like a triple distortion, and I think it's gonna make the harp sound super wide for this. Here's my harp without Beam Splitter. And here's my harp with Beam Splitter. For the rest of the harp, I'm gonna use the Unusual EAS by Black Skycraft. With this instrument, you can use a regular bow with it. You can use an E-bow, but I'm just gonna keep it simple and pluck it. And then I'm gonna run this note through this pedal, which will swell the note in. And then I'm gonna run it through this pedal, which will add bit crushing. All right, so here's what I did. Here's the final track. good. This is really... I think ours is bad. I thought it was the monster. It was like... But it's like reverse sounds. It's, you know what I mean? It's like... I would play this just based on the soundtrack alone.
What did you learn today?
I learned that this was a lot of work. There's a lot of weird instruments out there, and I have more to discover. I learned there's games out there that are scary as shit, and they have great soundtracks. Thank you so much to Burn Slap, to Audio Disruption Devices, to Magic Pulse Wave, to Zero Instruments. Am I forgetting something? Thank you to you for watching.
Oh, thank
Magic Pulse
you,
Wave.
Emily.
Magic
Thank
Pulse
you,
Wave, that was
Emily.
the one with the disc on it, right? With the marker. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, I want them all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I want them all. And damn,
two of everything.
she makes me want to play a harp. I never thought of harps sounding like that. Her approach with it and to like making sounds for games, totally out of the box and so cool.
Yeah, a lot of good options, and she had that whole like closet full of pedals there, so she had all kinds of different options to, and she's familiar with them too. It's not just like, oh, like I'll just grab this one and see what it sounds like. It's like, no, I want that one because I know that one is the one that has the sound that I want.
Well, she's a sound sculptor. You can tell, like, I could hang out in that room all day.
Mm-hmm. That tone generator, I mean, that kind of thing, like that's the kind of thing that you could lose a weekend over. Just like, start playing with that thing, and next thing you know, it's like, wait, it's Monday already? Like, what happened?
Yeah, and the drone mixed with the Moog, like what a cool combination. It very retro, very ambient. Like I thought I heard the Kraken being released.
Nice.
She
they have a
is
button for
good.
That right there.
She is good. At Emily Harpist on YouTube. Awesome new find.
Yeah, thank you. I have seen her before. I had not looked. I don't think we added her in the feed yet at that point, but I had seen her in my feed once before. Very cool.
But she is now in our subscribed.
We will find you.
And I'm definitely going to check out this fart pedal.
Yep, that's a win.
Well, I figured there's a pedal out there for it.
Yep, there has to be.
Awesome stuff. And, after looking at those, here's another exotic instrument. The Vietnamese Dan Bao, I think is how it's pronounced.
I'd probably go Dan Bao, but yeah.
Dan Bao.
Something like that.
I'll take Glenn's word for it. Oh, damn. He really does some crazy stuff, huh?
Nice.
Yeah. Do you recognize any of these instruments?
Not really. Need a better view.
We're going to have to check this channel out more when we're having our weird instrument nights at Nicholas Browse. Browse or Brass? I'm going to go with Browse.
Okay. Sounds fair.
Yeah. And then, we got a whole bunch of different videos on weird shit.
Just the kind of stuff we like to look for.
Yeah, and if they make them, which I'm not sure if he makes it or he modifies one, we'll have to see.
Yep. Let's check it out.
But if we can make one, I want the how-to.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see what he's got.
There is a country that has an absolute record for the number of unique traditional instruments, and this country is Vietnam. A lot of Vietnamese instruments use one-of-a-kind acoustic systems in a very creative way. Dan Ni, Areng, Klong Put, Dan Bao. There are no other instruments like that anywhere else on the planet. I've always been fascinated by those instruments, and today I'm taking you on a trip to Vietnam to discover all about it. Let's go! No, it's not true. I'm just gonna talk about instruments and build a DIY prototype with some scrap wood in my garage. But one day, this intro will be true. And to make it happen, subscribe to this channel and support me on Patreon. Today, I want to focus on the danbao, a one-string zither with a unique playing technique. The string is here. You play the natural overtones of the string with your right hand, with this weird position, the pinky on the harmonic node, the rest of the hand to handle the plectrum. The left hand plays with the tension of the strings, with bends and unbends. Is that a thing? Trained musicians can play a full chromatic scale with this. I can't, that's too much for my 40 minutes of practice, but that never stopped me for playing an instrument. I really love the danbao. I want to explore it, and for that I need to make my own version. So, I want to make an electric one with a guitar pickup. It should be quick. A click, a treated rod, guitar string, guitar peg, and guitar pickup. It works. Cool. See you soon. Bye. Of course not. It's just the beginning. It's hard to aim the right spot for the overtones. I need visual markers. I could put some marks on the wood, but it's quite far from the string. It depends of your position, but it won't be easy to play. I have a better idea. Much better. The resonant box is not really effective on the traditional instrument. The small resonator on the Rode is more decorative than really resonant. Most of the sound comes from the pickup. Just a cleat, resonant box. But I know a system I could adapt to make an acoustic version. This is my 14-string tin can cymbalum, with each string attached to an individual tin can on a treated rod. You know what will happen. Yes, I put treated rods this time. What do you prefer, treated rods or chopsticks? Tell me in the comments. Treated rods, I prefer treated rods, so it will be treated rods. Treated rods, treated rods. That's hard. There is an acoustic sound, but the question is, can we hear the tin can through the pickup? Yeah, I think I prefer the tin can version. It is subtle, but there is a little bit more personality. And now let's make the instruments I really want to play. I want to keep this prototype as a basis of my instrument, but I want 3 strings. I need to unify the 3 heads with a unique piece of wood, guitar pegs, pickup, and the strings. Reinforcements here and there to make it sturdy. That should work. Let's build. I want 3 octaves of the same note with guitar strings 6, 4 and 1. Okay, finished. I tuned all the strings in A. Let's try how it sounds. This is the sound of the 3 separate strings. I need to really push hard on my finger to get clear harmonics. But I can also get cool overtones mixed with the bass sound. The middle one is the closest to the original. The high one is quite difficult to play, but it will be quite interesting mixed with the other strings. Let's try some distortion on this. That's gonna be fun. Okay, music? I still have a few ideas with the Danbao. I will start my first series. Subscribe to not miss the coming videos. See you soon. Bye.
Very unique sound. Very cool.
Oh, jaw drop on that one.
Yeah. And that's like
I
simplifying the instrument out. Yeah.
Well, and just watching him build it, I love these do-it-yourself music channels where like it makes me want to go tap into my dad's tool shed, and
Oh, yeah.
that does not look that complicated to build. I mean, little preparation, and you don't need a lot.
No, if you've ever seen a cigar box guitar, same idea where it's just very simple, very small. A lot of times, two strings, whatever, just something very basic. Work out a fretboard, or in this case, without a fretboard, it's even easier because then it's if it's fretless, it's just a flat surface that you can just press down wherever you want. By marking it out the way he did, knowing where those points are to get those harmonics, that helps a lot. And the same thing
Yeah,
he was saying,
that
it
was
being
that was
far away
slick.
from the, yeah.
That was really slick how he chose to like get his visual markers there.
My first thought would have been to actually, put something on the strings, but then that changes the way the strings vibrate. So like,
Yeah.
like take, something like pen or, marker or paint or something, and having it on the strings at those points would make it easier to see it at those points. But I think that would affect the sound. So.
Yeah, well, his compromise there worked and didn't affect. What I found curious is like you can really play that a lot of different ways. Like he was tapping on it and playing, getting different sounds depending on like how he approached it.
Oh yeah, and that's an important thing is with any instrument is to explore the instrument. It's not just like when it comes to a guitar, it's not just taking the pick and going down and up through the strings. I mean, there's a lot of different ways you can hit it. Whether it, like you said, it's whether it's with a pick, whether it's with the fingers, whether you're slapping it, whether you're plucking it, so many different sounds that you can get, and the intensity with which you do any of those things can really change the tone that comes out as well.
Yeah, and considering he said like he's only had a little bit of practice with it, and I guess if that's like beginners Dan Bao, like damn man, I love that groove he was getting there.
Yeah, there was actually something that was it was a similar type of an instrument in terms of it was a single string, and it was a small can, but it was like it looked more like a wooden drum almost on the bottom, about the size of like a mayonnaise jar or whatever. And it was just a one stick going straight up and the one string, and you don't actually fret it to the stick. You're just playing notes all up and down. And it did sound like it had all of the chromatic notes, so you could play everything. And they were playing in a scale that had a lot of notes right next to each other, so a lot of chromaticism in whatever he was playing. So it wasn't just, pentatonics, for example, like certain instruments are tuned different ways. In this case, it was something that was fretless, but his style of playing kept it where it's very chromatic and had a lot of stuff that sounded really cool, very close together.
Yeah, and having those little like whammy bars on each string really makes it. Yeah, it makes it look fun. Like that looks like a fun instrument to jam on.
My first thought with those was, how does it stay in tune? How well does it stay in tune, I should say. But the one that he constructed seemed cool.
My first thought was, damn, if a string snaps and you're playing it that way, you could end up with like whiplash, a little like string snap across the face.
Gotta be careful. Don't play it with your teeth. Not recommended.
That is a very cool new channel. Again, the do-it-yourselfers, like roll your own instruments.
I am a fan for sure.
Yeah, and it does look like that's he explores the different types of custom-made instruments at Nicholas Brous.
Yep. And again, the ingredients that he went with for that, like with the even like a diddley bow, for example, like they were talking about before, it's a piece of wood, a pickup, a string, just doesn't take a whole lot of things, but you put it together and you see how it sounds and see if you can work with that. And then by modulating it, sending it through pedals or other effects, things like that, you can get, the different sounds that you're looking for.
Oh, and that thing definitely the distortion complemented it. Like Steve Vai, it just showed up.
The instrument came alive. Yeah.
And I bet you if like he was to pull out like a bow, a violin bow and try it on there, he might get some really freaky effects.
Yeah, definitely.
Very cool, Nicholas. Inspiring.
Good exploration.
Yeah. Now, you're shopping for a new computer.
Yes,
now,
I know.
I know you're not looking at. Well, you're not looking at the Mac, but like we mentioned, some of these things, I mean, the M series of Apple CPUs, the assumption that like all Macs are great for music, you really want to listen to his findings here and how not all the M chips are created equal there. And if you're going to buy one for music, you're going to want to take some of this into consideration. And the same's going to apply over on the Intel side.
Yeah, for sure.
Because
newest doesn't always mean best, but it's worth investigating which aspects are different.
And you want to know, like, your music software that you're using, whether it's going to benefit or take advantage of some of the things that the chips offer. Apple's chips really do offer a lot of potential and power, but not all software taps into it. So it's good to know the differences.
Absolutely. And this was a new channel for you, right?
Yes, this is, when it comes to the Mac channels, they're all new to me. Not that I'm anti-Mac, but it takes some nudging for me to go look at the Apple products and get compelled to possibly switch.
And music is with
dark side.
Music is one of those areas where they do excel, so that is one of the places to especially look into it. Yeah.
Well, yeah, the main reasons I've ever considered Macs: music, video editing, and certain programming. When I was a programmer, I actually did need to have a MacBook in order to code fluidly across everything.
Yep. Got to do it.
And this one comes from James Zahn. He's got Reaper tips, Logic Pro tips, plugin reviews, sample library reviews, music and tech. Channel right after our own heart.
Oh yeah.
At Good James Zahn. And he's going to show us the problems with the M3 Pro MacBook for music production. And he's going to give a comparison between the the M3 Pro, the M2, and the M1, and where they differ.
Nice. Well, let's break it down.
Wow. It's not using any of the efficiency cores. 6 of them. That's crazy.
In the last 2 Mac review videos, I basically discovered that not all DAWs can fully utilize all the cores in an Apple Silicon chip. And as a result, a newer chip doesn't necessarily give you better performance depending on which DAW you use. Over here, I have Apple's newest M3 Pro MacBook Pro, and this time, by popular request, I'm going to test 7 DAWs on it to see how well they utilize the cores in the chip. Then, I'll compare to my 10-core M2 Pro Mac and my 10-core M1 Pro Mac to show the performance differences across 7 DAWs. My goal is to provide you with accurate information so you can make an informed decision on which Mac best suits your needs. And so in the last 2 weeks, I tested and retested all 7 DAWs on all 3 Macs multiple times to ensure that all the results were repeatable and not just one-off occurrences. The M3 MacBook Pro I bought has the 11-core M3 Pro, 18GB of RAM, and 512GB of SSD. Out of the 11 cores in the chip, 5 of them are performance cores and 6 of them efficiency. It's quite interesting that Apple has been replacing more and more performance cores with efficiency ones for the Pro chips since the M2 line. With the 10-core M1 Pro, you get 8 performance cores and 2 efficiency cores. With the 10-core M2 Pro, you get only 6 performance cores but 4 efficiency cores. And now with the 11-core M3 Pro, you get 6 efficiency cores, but only 5 performance cores. This change in performance core to efficiency core ratio does make a noticeable difference in real-life audio processing scenarios, and that brings us to the testing. To assess a DAW's multi-core utilization, I first put a mono guitar DI on a track, then I put an Apple Silicon native plugin, Archetype Nolly, on the track, set it to high oversampling so it would be more taxing on the CPU, and then I duplicated the track with the plugin as many times as possible until I heard crackling in the audio or saw a CPU overload pop up when I tried to play all the tracks back at the same time. I would then delete one track, hit play to see if the DAW could play back smoothly. If so, I would note down the track count. If not, I would keep deleting tracks until the DAW could play back smoothly, and then note down the track count. So these track counts represent the maximum CPU power you can get with a specific DAW on a specific chip with this specific plugin. To take thermals into account, I did run each test for about half an hour in a room that's about 23 degrees Celsius or 73 degrees Fahrenheit before I wrote down the results. All DAWs were also set to 1024 buffer size, which is suitable for mixing and mastering. And the DAW projects were all in 44.1 kHz and set to 84-bit summing when the option was available. Now, I want to explain my testing methodology a bit here so you understand why I did the test this way in this video and in the last two Mac videos, and also why the test results are helpful in real life. In the last 2 years, I've been testing Apple Silicon Macs for audio processing. I've learned that testing DAW performance on these chips really comes down to multi-core utilization. Now, obviously, no one will duplicate the same track so many times in a real mixing session, but you probably have many tracks, and those tracks will probably have all kinds of plugins on them. In a typical mixing session like that, you are basically relying on the multi-core performance your DAW can get out of the chip. And that's what I'm simulating here with my test setup. It doesn't really matter that I'm duplicating an amp many times. What matters here is that we can see how each DAW uses the cores in the CPU and how much of a difference the M1 Pro, M2 Pro, and M3 Pro chips have compared to each other. Let's start with Reaper. And here's a screenshot of the audio configurations I used for the test. I was able to play back 91 tracks with the 10-core version of both the M1 Pro and M2 Pro before the audio started to crackle. With the 11-core M3 Pro chip, Reaper could handle 105 tracks, which is 14 tracks more. If we look at a CPU monitor here, you can see that Reaper is able to utilize all the cores, both performance and efficiency, to the absolute limit. With M3 Pro having one extra core, Reaper was able to give you more performance, as one would expect. Because of this, I would consider Reaper to be fully optimized for all these chips. And this means that if your main DAW is Reaper, you can expect more performance if you get a chip with more cores. I want to remind you that the exact track count here means nothing because with a different plugin, you could have way more or way less tracks. The numbers are here to show the differences on how well these 7 DAWs utilize each CPU. If you enjoyed the video so far, let me know by leaving a like and or leaving a comment. It would really help out the channel. Moving on to Cubase 13, and these are the audio configurations I had for the test. Cubase 13 could handle 89 tracks with M1 Pro and M2 Pro, and with M3 Pro, it could handle 104 tracks, which is 15 tracks more. Looking at the CPU monitor here, you can see that the story is the same as Reaper. Cubase 13 was able to fully utilize all the cores, though not as to the limit as Reaper did, but still, the results are very similar. I suspect it takes a bit more resources to run Cubase 13 simply because it has so many more features than Reaper, and that might be why the track counts are just a little bit less than Reaper. But you can see that Cubase 13 is still fully optimized for Apple Silicon chips. Next up is Pro Tools Ultimate, and these are the audio configurations. On M1 Pro, Pro Tools could handle 86 tracks, but on M2 Pro, only 71. On the M3 Pro, however, it could only handle 64 tracks, which is 22 less tracks compared to Pro Tools running on M1 Pro. I'm going to duplicate this track one more time. And this is what happens. Can't even play it. So why does the third generation chip with more cores perform worse than the first generation chip? Well, the answer is in the CPU monitor. You can see that on all 3 chips, Pro Tools only used the performance cores fully, and the efficiency cores remained idle. Despite M3 having one extra core than the M1 Pro, if you looked at only the performance cores, M1 Pro actually has 3 more performance cores than the M3 Pro. And this is why Pro Tools on the 10-core M1 Pro outperforms it being on the 11-core M3 Pro. And also why Pro Tools on M3 Pro sits in the middle, since the 10-core M2 Pro has 1 more performance core than the M3 Pro, but 2 less than the M1 Pro. It feels like I'm doing something wrong here, but I double and triple checked to ensure that any settings that could get Pro Tools to use the CPU better, I had already enabled them. And this is still the best I can get. So I can only conclude that Pro Tools simply does not make full use of the efficiency cores. Let's now take a look at Logic Pro X, Apple's own DAW. And here are the audio configurations. Many of you in my last videos told me to set the processing threads to the max instead of automatic. I already said in those videos or the comments that I already did that. And once again, I'm saying that here that I did that, okay? So on the M1 Pro, Logic could handle 79 tracks, but on the M2 Pro, only 67 tracks. On the M3 Pro, again, it could handle even less tracks than the first and second generation chips, at only 64 tracks. Looking at the CPU monitor on 3 computers, you can see that Logic only fully utilized the performance cores. Moving on to Ableton Live 11. I know that Live 12 is out in beta, but I don't have access to it, so 11 is what I tested. Here's the audio configurations I had for the test. On M1 Pro, Live 11 could handle 72 tracks, but on the M2 Pro, only 62 tracks, and on the M3 Pro, even less, at 60 tracks. Some of you pointed out that Ableton has a webpage saying that for Apple Silicon chips, you should use smaller buffer sizes for lower CPU usage and larger buffer sizes for higher CPU usage. However, in my experience, Live 11 behaves exactly the same as other DAWs when it comes to buffer size, latency, and CPU usage, which is that if you set the buffer size to larger, you'll be able to do more audio processing at the expense of higher latency. If you set the buffer size to smaller, you would get lower latency at the expense of not being able to do as much audio processing. So right now I have the buffer size at 1024, which is a pretty large buffer. It will be able to play 60 tracks. Now, if I change it to a small buffer size like 128, and I'm going to try to play the same thing. Yeah, it's even worse. I'm more inclined to believe that Ableton did not make a mistake in the article. I think the wording is just a bit confusing. I'm honestly not sure, maybe I did something completely wrong, so please correct me in the comments if I did. Taking a look at CPU monitors, you can see that, once again, only the performance cores were being fully used by Live 11 on all 3 Macs. Next up is the new DAW, FL Studio. I think some of you wrote to ImageLine about FL Studio not being included in my previous Mac testing videos, and the company was kind enough to send me a license to test it. They said absolutely no strings attached. They did not even ask me to include it in this video. But of course, I read your comment and included it of my own volition. But the fact that I got a license for free did not impact my testing in any way. I'm just here reporting hard data. Here are the audio configurations I had for the test. On both M1 Pro and M2 Pro, FL Studio could only handle 61 tracks, while on the M3 Pro, it could handle 70 tracks. This is an interesting case because if you look at the CPU monitors, all the cores were being used almost to the max. Theoretically, FL Studio should be able to give us performance levels similar to those from Reaper and Cubase 13, but in reality, it's far from it. Now, I did find FL Studio's workflow to be rather different than other DAWs, so just to make sure I didn't make a huge mistake, I'll quickly show you how I set up the test. I first imported the mono.di file into a track, then I assigned it to insert 1 in track mode. In the mixer, I added archetype nolly as an insert. Then, I right-click on a track and use the clone option to duplicate the many copies of the track. Unless I did something wrong here, I don't know why FL Studio is underperforming compared to Reaper and Cubase despite being able to use all the cores. I thought maybe it was because of all the fancy animations in FL Studio, so I tried setting animation to minimum and that didn't help. So I really don't know. But what we do know from the test results is that having more cores, be they the performance type or efficiency type, does give you a leg up in FL Studio. The last DAW I tested was Studio 1.6, and here are the audio configurations I had. You may notice that I had dropout protection set to high instead of maximum. The reason is to keep the process block size the same as other DAWs, which is 1024 samples. If I set dropout protection to maximum, the process block size would become 2048, and that wouldn't make a fair comparison. On M1 Pro, Studio One could handle 70 tracks, but on M2 Pro, only 66 tracks. On M3 Pro, it's 65 tracks. Looking at the CPU monitors, you can see that Studio One is similar to Pro Tools, Logic, and Live 11 in that it doesn't fully utilize the efficiency cores. So the chip with more performance cores, M1 Pro in this case, will give you more performance. All right, I'm going to duplicate it one more time. Here we go. I'm going to play it. Yeah, definitely cannot handle that. I did notice that something weird is happening with Studio One on the M1 Pro Mac though. It's not using one of the performance cores for some reason. I'm assuming it must be some kind of bug. So where does that leave us? Well, if your main DAW is Reaper, Cubase, or FL Studio, the number of cores a chip has will directly translate to how much performance you get. It actually doesn't even matter the number of performance cores versus efficiency cores because even though the 10-core M2 Pro traded 2 performance cores to be efficiency cores, it offers the same performance as the 10-core M1 Pro. This means that if the kind of work you do requires mostly audio processing, like mixing, and you do it in Reaper, Cubase, or FL Studio, a Mac with the 10-core M1 Pro chip will give you the best value. Or if you think you need more cores, and if I were to extrapolate from the testing data so far, the 12-core M2 Pro should give you the same performance as the 12-core M3 Pro. I'll emphasize that this is merely my extrapolation based on empirical data, and I did not actually have the chance to test these 12-core chips personally. If your main DAW is Pro Tools, Logic Pro X, Ableton Live 11, don't know about 12, or Studio One, it's important to keep in mind that your DAW only fully utilizes the performance cores in an Apple Silicon chip, at least as of this video's publishing date. It would be a mistake to assume that the newest MacBook Pro with an 11-core M3 Pro would offer you more performance than a Mac with a 10-core M1 Pro. When choosing a Mac, you should really pay attention to how many performance cores the chip has because those are what will be powering your DAW. Here's some advice for you to consider. I know we all want to buy the newest Macs with the newest chips. I know some of you love that new matte black color, but if you want to get the most out of the money you spent, or if you want to allocate more of your money for RAM or SSD, the best Mac for you might be from the M1 line or the M2 line. For example, if you need a lot of RAM for your film scoring sound libraries, it would make much more sense to get this M1 Max MacBook Pro with 64GB of RAM and 2TB SSD from Apple's refurbished store, instead of configuring 64GB of RAM for a brand new M3 Max MacBook Pro. It's a difference of $1,400. Unless you really need that 16-core M3 Max chip as well, it would make no sense to spend that extra cash when all you need is a lot of RAM. My M1 and M2 Mac buying guide video is more relevant than ever now that more and more Apple Silicon Macs are hitting the secondhand market. You can see from this video that the M1 line can actually be even more powerful than the M3 line for audio production. It's really a great time to upgrade your Mac or jump on the Apple Silicon line. Honestly, I have been using my M1 Max MacBook Pro since launch and I've yet to feel the need to upgrade it. Like, at all. I work with a lot of large mixing projects and most of the time I'm only using like 50% of the CPU. It's bonkers. That's it for today. If you find this video helpful at all, please consider giving it a like. It will really help out the channel. Don't forget to subscribe if you want more content like this, and I will see you next time. Buying guide video is more relevant than...
We were supposed to eat raspberries!
Oh no!
Oh, he got raspberried at the end.
Only one man dares give me the raspberry. Lone Star.
And I would give you 2 likes, James, if they would let me hit the like button twice, because that is some great advice, a great testing approach. I wish more users would show those kind of stress testing approaches and results.
Absolutely. And again, like, it does show you that, it's not always the newest that is the best, and there's a perfect reason behind it. And, he got into the weeds about how it's, some of the DAWs work very well. They utilize all that, and other ones don't utilize those chips at all. So it's really a question of how they are optimized.
Well, and with the Mac side, these efficiency cores, I'm not convinced these efficiency cores, right now it feels like Apple is finding a cheaper way to make cores that really aren't real cores. Like they are pseudo cores, and the programmers, the people making these programs, aren't necessarily on board to utilize those efficiency cores. That's why you see a difference with some of those DAWs. Reaper and Cubase, I mean, depending on which DAWs you guys are using over on the Mac side, Reaper and Cubase seem to be great choices if you do want to get an M3 chip. But if you're using one of the other DAWs, and surprisingly, Logic is the one that I was expecting. If one DAW would utilize like anything Apple makes, Logic would make the most sense because
it would make the most sense.
It's their product.
It would make the most sense, but that doesn't necessarily mean that's the way it is.
Yeah, but it does compel me to like really get into Reaper more. Doesn't matter whether you're a Windows or a Mac guy. This is a flexible DAW, and he mentioned like it's low overhead compared to Cubase. It actually gives it more of an advantage because Reaper, they keep things simple. They're not trying to like visually stimulate you. They're trying to like optimize what a DAW is good for. When you get into Cubase and you get into Fruity Loops, they try to make it look good and they sacrifice performance for that.
Yeah, it's more about keeping the DAW keeping the DAW out of your way so that you can do what you want to do while you're in there.
Yeah,
that's the main thing.
Yeah, if you like it to look good, then Cubase and Fruity Loops will make it look prettier, but that doesn't necessarily equate to better sound. Or more tracks in that case.
And thank you again for the excellent testing there, James. Very, very well done.
Yes, at James Zahn, and he's got a website over at jameszproduction.com. I like his approach. I will be back.
Absolutely. And in the meantime, I think the bass of the future is here.
Yes, apparently we are now in the Jetsons level bass.
Nice. It looks very smooth.
Oh, and the channel name, I mean, Bass the World. At Bass the World Official.
Very cool.
No, and he does have a website too, basstheworld.creator-spring.com. Ooh, that's a mouthful.
Yes, indeed.
But he definitely, whoa, look at these videos. You should be perusing this.
Gotta love some bass stuff.
So this one, he's talking about like, you know, a bass with features that are ahead of their time. 21st century bass.
Very cool. We're going to see what we got here. The bass of the future.
Working title, boldly going where no other bass builder has gone before, Marlowe Bass Guitars has released a new bass today. A bass like no other out there. Let's check it out. Hi you lovely people, welcome to Bass the World. My name is Gregor Fries and playing this intergalactic beauty is my buddy Lars Lehmann today. They call it Spock. Yes, that's the name of this new creation. The Spock is a complete reimagining of how a bass can be built. You might have noticed this unique top and that there are no controls, but you haven't seen this yet. This project was supported by the German Federal Ministry for Economic Affairs and Climate Action. With their funding, Gerald Marlowe was able to develop a new material which he calls Marlowe Logic Mesh. But first things first, before we talk more about this new material, let's have a quick look at the bass itself. We have a 32-inch medium-scale single-cut bass with a bolt-on neck. The fingerboard is extended to 28 frets, but it might get a bit challenging to reach the last ones. The Logic Mesh top on this one is blue, dark blue in the shade, but if the sun is out you will notice the top is actually see-through. The lack of what we would typically call a bass body probably comes down to the fact that Gerald Malo wants to play with light here. A solid back would ruin all the fun. The Logic Mesh is installed like an arch top, slightly recessed into the wood body, which gives it a dramatic visual effect. This looks stunning, no question here, but how does it actually affect the sound? The Spock is clearly a Malo design. The beautiful aesthetic curves speak the language of the German man with the French name, but the sound is very unlike anything that's typical for Malo. While we were recording these sound samples at multiple times we were talking about how much this bass sounds like it has piezo pickups built in. A very high amount of highs and an even tone all across the fingerboard also. The pickup of choice is a humbucker in a beautiful wooden cover that allows serial, parallel and single coil sound options. And yes, many basses offer this nowadays, but here it feels like you're getting a new bass each time you flip the switch. Which is a good thing. It's a lot more versatile than the one pickup would make you think. The other switch on the back is an active passive switch for the preamp. We have controls for master volume, passive tone and then active basses, mids and highs. By the way, considering this is a 32-inch scale bass, the B string sounds fantastic. One last thing to mention is the new bridge reminding of a system you would find on the cello. But this one here only looks romantic. On the inside it gets all technical. The floating wooden string holder covers a piece of metal to make sure these strings can never work through the wood and slip. The bridge itself looks like a Höfner design, but the difference couldn't be bigger. This one here will stay in place when you're changing your strings, and a smart hidden system allows perfect intonation adjustment for each string. And of course, not to forget, this bass is very light. It weighs only 3.2 kilos, which are 7 Freedom kilos. Sound-wise, it's an interesting addition to the Malo lineup. There's no other bass that can go from this to this. The cool thing is the Logic Mesh can look like anything. You could practically send a Malo a picture of your dog and they could Logic Mesh it on your bass, or some fabric, or anything really. I love the look of this sometimes blue, sometimes black top. It looks beautiful and mysterious. I think I would like it like that. But you could customize everything about the bass. You could choose different woods for the body, for the neck, or for the pickup cover. You could of course choose a different top. The possibilities are endless. This Spock, what a fun bass. If you want to get one for yourself, please check the links in the video description below. And otherwise, that's it from me. Thanks for watching and goodbye. Bass
Bass the world.
Oh, I am curious. What's the cost?
You asked the wrong question.
Dude,
Well, you're looking at a Fender bass right there.
Oh.
Or is that a Squier bass?
Well, I'm looking at the links he's got in here.
Right. Now that would be was it Marlowe? Marlowe?
Oh, I see. These are links to his.
Yeah, you might have it in the description down there. Very solid. Looks like it was very well engineered. Everything put together, well thought out. My thought is on those the knobs, like tuning knobs on the back, they're probably recessed in such a way where, you know, if it was a solid back body, it would be, you know, they'd be in the same area, so it wouldn't be, you know, snagging on your shirt and stuff like that. I don't think.
All right, these are well. Oh, that's pounds or euros. Well, it doesn't look cheap, but it does look cool.
I like the those first couple. They look kind of like yeah, very solid. Like the massive cutaway where you got the big chunk of wood on the one side of the neck and the other side is really cut away like that. I like that look.
Well, and what do you think of the design? Like our residential bassist,
Yeah,
the
I like
the knobs being in the back. With that, do you normally fidget with your knobs like while you're playing, or is that something that you wouldn't get in your way if you had to adjust it like in between a song?
Me, I almost never adjust them in the, you know, while I'm playing. At one thing, like some people would do is to try to just turn the volume down to go, you know, if you're going to put the bass down or whatever. But a lot of people would just use a volume pedal and just click that in so that it mutes the, you know, mutes the string for you before you put it down. So it's not a big deal. But if you did have to reach back, my thought would be that you would just basically, you know, tilt the body a little bit away from you and you'd be able to get right to the controls. You don't have to see them because, you know, 2 on this side, 3 on that side. Once you're familiar with which ones are which, you can just, you know, reach and adjust what you need to there. But again, once I would have something dialed in, I would pretty much, I set it and forget it and go from there. The other question is on the angle of that, the jack, and whether, you know, if that's angled so that it's coming out far enough, then that's coming out and towards you, you know, so that's towards your body.
Is that the jack down here on the right picture, in the center here?
Yep. So that's where you're plugging in, and so the you know, cord will be coming out the bottom there.
Yeah, that
And
does seem a little unusual.
Well, it looks like it would be convenient or comfortable if you're either sitting or standing. It's basically coming out where it should be and heading out, you know, and it doesn't have to be, you know, the fact that it's against your on the body side shouldn't mean that it's getting pinched against your body because, you know, at that point, the bass is kind of away from your body anyway, because that's the very, very end of the bass. It also depends on where the strap connects and how that, you know, goes together. A lot of times you'll have the cable come, you know, through the strap before it gets plugged into the guitar, so that if something does snag the cable, it'll pull on the strap before it pulls out the jack on the guitar or the bass. But I really do like the look of it. I like the fact that it's going to be super light. He said 7 freedom kilos or 7 pounds. So that's
well, look at the body carved. It's like carved out in the back. Like you get rid of a lot of weight by doing that.
A lot of weight's missing. Exactly. And that's the question, is how that affects the resonance. But you heard it. So, I mean, it sounded like it has plenty of body and plenty of good sound, plenty of good tone.
As far as the tone, like the first thing that caught me as the video started was the tone of it. It's got a beautiful sound.
Exactly. So very solid.
Yeah, maybe this is the bass of the future. Hey, Santa, hook Glenn up.
I even like the color. I'll take
shit. I'll take it out the box the way it is.
One for me, please.
At Bass the World Official. We're gonna have to bring this channel back for Bass Night Part 3.
Oh, absolutely. We will check it out for sure.
Yeah,
might even have me checking out. Might have me checking out the one of those 6 strings that I saw over today over at the I think I was at a Sam Ash, you know, music store. Just stopped in, grab a tuner and whatever. While I was there, I was like, let me check it out. 6 strings, see how they are.
You got a Sam Ash next to you, you lucky son of a bitch.
It's not right here, but it was like I had some things that I had to do today, and it was right where I was heading. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to go stop here. I'm going to stop there, and I'm going to stop there. So I had 3 stops. I'm like, bam, bam, bam.
Well, if I wanted to go to Sam Ash, it would probably take me about 15 hours. So you're...
Yep. It did not take that long. I was able to get there in 20, got home in 20. So managed to do it in the middle of the day when there was no major traffic. So it was good.
Well, next time you go to one, see if they've got one of these bad boys.
See, I'd be very surprised. Same thing with like the Chapman stick, for example. I've always wanted to see one, but I've never been to a music store where I would even suspect that I would find one. At this place, though, they did have a very large used instrument section that I was checking out. So I mean, you could see all of what everybody brought in, what was on sale, what was very unique looking instruments. They had a couple of what they have a Kiss guitar, like silver
Oh,
with
the
like
Ace Frehley style.
yeah. They had a couple of
Yeah.
really solid ones there. So looking at just looking around like, oh, that one looks cool, that one looks cool. Seeing all that, and then seeing oh, over here's the $7,000 bass, and over here's a $1,400 bass, and over here's a $200 bass, and it's like they look very similar, but it has to do with how they're actually put together, the construction, the solidness of the feel, the intonation, all that stuff. It really, and it's entirely possible for you to find a cheap instrument that feels amazing and feels like $1 million, and it's possible to find one that's an $8,000 guitar that feels like crap because it's not put together well, not set up right, had issues, whatever. It's so you have to kind of know what you're looking for, or at the very least, pick it up, touch it, feel it, get familiar with it.
You gotta be able to feel it.
Yeah, you gotta touch it.
Action knows no price.
Exactly. And I don't remember if I told you the other day, but one of my buddies got a new Telecaster the other day. So I was out there at his house on Wednesday, and it's like a all white, like pure white Telecaster, and it feels really nice. Like it just just pick it up and just start messing with it. Like the intonation's not set yet. Like it looks like it was just when they assemble it, they just kind of put it all together, and all the strings are lined up directly. Like when you're looking at where the adjustable saddles are, they're all exactly in a line. And to me, like when I look at that, I know that it's not set up yet, because you have to really fine tune that. Like one's going to be a little further up, one's a little further back in order to get the intonation just right. So I was telling him, I'm like, okay, I'll come by, we'll do a full setup when I come by next Wednesday, and we'll get it all, perfectly dialed in and all that. But today it was just it was just basically getting the feeling how smooth the neck feels, feeling how fast you can play on it, how clean and just solid the tone was as well. Very cool.
Oh yeah, when you find a telly that feels good, hold on to it for dear life.
Yeah, and it's a beauty too. It's pure white, and I was telling him the story that the first guitar I had was pure white, but it had been older by the time I got it, so it was already off white. It was already getting yellowish, and I didn't like that. So
that's the problem. That's the problem with white.
That is the problem with white, but I didn't like it, so I sanded it all down to wood, knowing nothing about instruments. I sanded it all down to plain wood and painted it metallic flake blue, and it's not bad, but I definitely did not do it, according to the way you would normally do things on a guitar. I just basically was like, you just sandpaper, right? And just sand it all down. And so I'm sure, but it was a hobby guitar. It was an Epiphone Strat style guitar. So it has the 3 pickups and the 5-way switch and all that.
Well, now it's got the blues.
And now it's got the blues, and it hangs out over at the studio over by Joey's house. But I'll bring it back over here at some point. We were talking about having a comparison at some point, like, the SG with the 2 pickups and the 3-way switch, or something like a Strat where it's got the 3 pickups and the 5-way switch. And you can see those differences.
I would totally love to do a tone test one night.
Mm-hmm.
If we can get that set up and nice comparison with the audio, tone tests.
Exactly. And that's where, what I have in the house normally is the SG, and I have the Dean. The Dean, I think that's the one I was telling you, I was going to put the 12s on. So I'm going to put a set of strings that are much fatter, much heavier strings. The 12s I'm going to put on the Dean. On the SG right now, I have 9s. And I want to say that I had probably 10s on the Epiphone.
Well, that's another tone test. That's another tone test we want to do. So before you go switching those, we'll get a little capture, switch them, capture again.
And what you'll be hearing also is the difference between like old ass strings and new strings, because the ones that are on there right now have probably been on there for 3 years or 4 years. So you hear the difference between old ass 10s and new 12s.
Well, they don't age like wine.
No, they don't. But they do gain character, and you'll hear the difference for sure. But you would probably also hear the difference if they were both brand new side by side. But in this case, they would not be, because those strings are old.
Well, if you are looking for a bass of the future, check out at Bass the World official and see what info you can find.
I like it. Very cool.
Yeah, another freshie.
I think next we go to Mr. Beato.
Well, next we go to DC. Mr. Beato goes to DC. And for something important, because they are trying to figure out how AI is going to fit into, Hollywood's going through that. Like the strikes were all about like royalties, residuals, and AI, and some of their like discussions also have to do with the music industry, and they couldn't find a better spokesman than Rick Beato. Like, if you're going to bring
Exactly.
somebody in who understands the territory,
Mhm.
Rick is the man. It kind of reminds me of like Dee Snider back in the 80s when, Tipper Gore was doing her thing, and, Snyder and Zappa went up there to like remind Congress this is the landscape.
Mhm.
And I hope Beato lets them know, you know, AI, very cool, but at the same time, things to consider in the music world.
Yeah. And that's the thing is it is a landscape, and it is something where, if you're going to talk about the limits of fair use, for example, as just, part of a music thing that we've talked about several times that Rick's been involved with a bunch of times, he understands that landscape. So to bring that experience in to talk about AI and how disruptive it can be, because it's going to be disruptive in a lot of different ways, and a lot of ways are good, but in a lot of ways people would see as bad. So that's where it's important to kind of get ahead of what's going to be going on there and try to legislate now instead of after it's all out and trying to fix it after the fact. That's going to be more of a problem.
Yeah. There's people who are suggesting to record companies, like, what do you need to get the next big artist? Create the next big artist with AI, and then you don't have to pay them. Like, technically, the record company owns the artist in a whole different way.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Which I don't see as a good thing. Like, that could put a lot of the listeners might, if they like the music, the listeners might not care whether the next Taylor Swift is a robot or a teenage girl.
Well, that's the real question is, if the product, if what is made, the music that comes out of it is good and would not have been produced in any other way, then, is that a good thing or is it a bad thing? Right. I mean, you might say that it's keeping other real artists, quote unquote, real artists from getting famous or what have you, but I don't see it in that same way. Like, there's room for everybody in terms of, especially with the internet. I mean, anybody anywhere in their bedroom could get famous for whatever. You make a 10-second video of something and get famous just, because it happens to hit the right nerve at the right time. But, the source of it, whether it's a person or not, as you say, it comes down to the royalty. It comes down to where the money goes if it actually starts making money. But if it's just creating content and the rights to the content, that's the important thing to me, is who generated the content. And that's where fair use and all of that, all those conversations kind of intersect at that point.
Yeah. What I really hope is it doesn't deter future artists. Like,
right.
Don't let AI stop you from being creative. Don't feel like there's no sense in being creative because the AI is going to own the entertainment world. That shouldn't stop you from getting your outlet.
And again, using the AI tools in the right way. Like, you're trying to still, drive the creative ship. Like, we're still, in the driver's seat making the creative stuff, but we're using AI to assist us to make things easier. Like, when it came to, animation, instead of hand drawing every single cell for doing cartoons, AI all of a sudden can do all that drawing for you. So you can get more into the, then, the character does this and the character does that. You're just more storyboarding and can leave the nitty gritty of the actual animating to the AI, which again would put some of the
hopefully
artists out of work.
It shifts the workload to be more focused on the creativity and less on the actual work.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And more the creative vision being our role in the in the partnership, really, between us and the AI. Having the AI help us get to the end result that we're looking for, and helping just to take the menial tasks off our hands, kind of.
Yeah. Another interesting thing that got announced this week, Kiss announced that they will not be touring physically in the future. They will be doing what they're calling virtual concerts, and they will be live. But when people go to see Kiss in the future, what they'll be seeing are holograms on the stage, and they'll actually be performing, but they'll be remoting their performance to a hologram, and they think that, like, tomorrow's audience is going to be, tomorrow's kids might not care whether they're seeing a physical human on that stage or they're seeing Ace Frehley looking like he was in the 70s
Yeah.
playing.
Yeah, because the experience, I mean, how different is the experience, right? I mean, if they're getting the sounds that they want to hear and they're able to see, what they want to see, the visuals, it depends on the resolution and all, of course, but
And for me, if the musician is still the one that's actually playing that music, and it's not just like, you're not going to see a pre-recorded track and a hologram. If you are hearing Ace Frehley and it's a hologram, hey, I might not care.
Mm-hmm. At the same time, there's also lots of other musicians out there who could play very well that you could go, spend money to go see play. It doesn't have to be that musician. That's one thing where, when it comes to holograms and things like that, to be able to see that artist into the future, it's like, well, I mean, there are other artists who can play, perfectly well that we could follow them instead.
That's like going and watching a Kiss tribute band at that point.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that's something that I support. I mean, I'm a big fan of, people doing covers and going out and supporting local musicians and all of that. I go out and do open mics a couple times a week, all the time. Just, I like to go out and support the other people who are out there playing. As a bass player, there's usually a lack of bass players at open jams anyway. So most of the time I get asked to be, the bass player for the night, or, somebody sees me play and they're like, oh, we need you to come up to play with us when we're after. And I love that because, we get to, it's like I did not expect to be playing music with that guy or that lady or whatever. Like, it just happened. And it's one of those things that's very cool when it does happen like that.
You're in demand.
It's fun.
Just like Rick here, like, they needed like a smart mind to give them some advice about this AI stuff. And they went to a resource. It's at Rick Beato over on YouTube. You probably know this channel because we go to this channel whenever the topics fit.
And if you don't know it, you should know it. So you can get over there.
Yeah. Truly one of the best like musical resources on YouTube. One of the first ones that I went to on YouTube for music.
Yep. Lots of good advice. And
so we're gonna see what he testified at over on Congress.
Let's check it out.
Just returned from Washington, D.C. yesterday. I was asked to be part of a Senate hearing on AI dealing with copyright, IP, explainability, and transparency. The guy that invited me, Frank Tedeschi. Frank, say hi. Hi. Frank follows my channel, and he saw my testimony from July of 2020 where I spoke in front of the Judiciary Committee about the DMCA, the Digital Millennium Copyright Act. They were trying to update that, and I spoke about fair use. This is related to the videos that I've made on blocking. Most of these videos are actually fair use, so I've talked a lot about fair use on my channel. I've also made a number of videos on AI. One of them, I think, called The AI Effect, a New Era in Music and Its Unintended Consequences. I made a video called Can You Distinguish AI Generated Music? Or How Bad Is This AI Music? Which I just did a live stream on. So they wanted somebody to come in and talk about these things that was from the music field. So that's why they asked me. Now, it's one thing to sit here and read a statement like I did back in 2020 and be asked questions from right here where I'm used to sitting. The last time I did this, I was wearing gym shorts under my outfit here. This one I actually had to get dressed up for. I just got a compliment on my shoes from someone, said nice shoes with the outfit. Pretty cool. It's another thing to get on a plane and fly to DC, check into your hotel, go to Starbucks for some coffee and write some notes, then get an Uber down to the Russell Senate office building where we went through a series of tunnels after we went through security to get up to the room where the AI Insight Forum was being held, the Kennedy Caucus Room. One of the reasons I agreed to do this is that this was a nonpartisan, or I should say bipartisan committee. The 4 senators that were involved were Senator Schumer, Senator Rounds, Senator Heinrich, and Senator Young. Senator Rounds, Mike Rounds from South Dakota, Frank works for him, and that's who invited me to participate. But it was a whole host of people from all different companies. There were people from the Allen Institute for AI, Open Mind, Stability AI, National Association of Broadcasters, Duke University, News Guild, Brookings Institute, SAG and AFTRA, Motion Picture Association, and Spotify. Before I go on, I just want to take a second and ask people to hit the subscribe button on the channel. Over 60% of the people that watch my channel regularly are not subscribed. The more subscribers I have, it's a vanity metric, many people say, but it actually helps me get these big interviews that I've been able to get. So hit the subscribe button now. There's no video from the hearing. It was a closed hearing. Senators were coming in and out during it, trying to get a feel for what was going on. It lasted for 3 hours. We were each asked individual questions, and then we were asked to respond to other people's responses. It was absolutely fascinating. One of the solutions that I proposed was that just as in when you have music for film, you need to get a sync license. Or if you have a music that's playing in a public area, you need a public performance license. So I said you should have something called the AI Music Dataset License that will tell people what models the music that you're listening to were trained on. If they were trained on the Beatles music or Led Zeppelin's music or Stevie Wonder's music. The consumer needs to know this, as do the artist and the copyright holders, so they can be compensated fairly. The other thing that I mentioned was that anything that's 100% AI generated should have no copyright. And the senators that were looking at me all nodded their head in agreement. And then afterwards, I got a chance to go up to Senator Rounds' office and talk with him privately for about a half hour or so. It was interesting. He talked about how well these senators get along and how they agree on about 95% of things. But the news media does not want to talk about that. They just want to talk about the controversial things. After the forum ended, we walked out and Senator Schumer and Senator Young gave a recap. I found this on PBS. It's actually the only footage that I found about it, but they give a very good recap on what happened during the meeting.
We have some things that I think there was a pretty good consensus on. First, when it comes to copyright in AI, we have to create and enforce protections for creators. To maintain their identities in the age of AI, and that may include ensuring some transparency in the AI systems to see what data they're trained on. But we have to do that and still maintain America's lead. Can't slow it down, so these are all difficult issues. Todd.
I also agree. This is a fantastic forum. We learned a lot. The first forum, intellectual property, copyright. Second forum, transparency and explainability. Transparency is essentially trying to understand the coding and having some visibility into the algorithms in these advanced AI technologies that make decisions. Explainable technologies would be those that are explainable either to a rank-and-file consumer or to some sort of intermediary so that in the end the consumer understands how they work. Our emphasis here, in my view, and I think those of my colleagues, is as with the other topics, to make sure that the U.S. continues to lead the way in development and deployment of these technologies, but also that we're managing particular risks. When it comes to all of the topics, IP, copyright, transparency and explainability, I think there's going to be a balance. It was really underscored today. There were some people who had divergent views, frankly, about how we protect the intellectual property of our producers, from artists to other individuals. Some favored a more heavy regulatory approach. Others said, let's leave it up to the market and follow existing court standards, court precedents, and applying such doctrines as fair use. My suspicion, as with so many other things around here, is we're going to try and find a middle ground, which in the end will have to be a principled compromise. And we heard some really, I think, thoughtful ideas about how we're going to strike that balance today. Can't get into particulars because, frankly, I'm going to have to go back and unpack some of my voluminous notes.
In addition to going to Senator Round's office, I also got a chance to go to Senator Schumer's office and see his incredible view off the balcony overlooking the city. It's fantastic, as you can see here. I'll continue to keep you posted on all the latest developments in AI. There are so many other AI music systems that are coming out. There's Dream Track that's YouTube just put out, which I hope to make a video on soon. And anything that's coming down the pipe, we'll be talking about. That's all for now. Leave a comment. Thanks so much for watching.
Nice.
Oh, he's so awesome.
Breaking it down.
Well, I've been keeping an eye on his AI stuff. Like, he's really been diving into it. And, I like seeing this is a bipartisan issue. It is not a left or right thing. Both sides want to find a way to deal with the copyright, most importantly, in the future, and they can't really rely on the old approach anymore. Like, there's some software companies that are arguing that, like, hey, we built this AI technology. Technically, we own the creative rights, and that's debatable just as much as where they extract the creativity from when they go out there and scrape
when they train the models. Yeah.
So
that is a big thing.
So who should benefit from royalties when it's created this way? Is the approach of like open source, like it's everybody should maybe benefit and nobody should actually get any royalties? It's going to be a slippery slope there.
Well, to me, part of it kind of breaks down to what instigated the art. Like, if there's an AI that was sitting there and decided to make art on its own, and you put that out there, then I would say either it has the right to it or there are no rights to it. Whereas if I specifically I prompt craft something and I get something and I prompt the AI to make something, it was at my direction that it did it, and it would not have existed if I hadn't asked the AI to do it. And sure, it wouldn't have existed if the AI hadn't done those steps for me either. But it was kind of a hand-in-hand process. Like, we both had a role in the process, me and the AI. Like, I instigated by putting together the words that I wanted to, I had the vision of what we wanted to make, and then the AI helped me make that. I think that's different, that AI that's just generated on its own by the AI.
And you know what I could see coming is AI that designs to the prompter, and in which case the AI has to know you a little bit in order to, because if you do the same prompt as somebody else in the same AI engine and it produces the same thing because you both prompted it the same way, then it's the technology that's generating based on your prompt. But if the AI actually knows you and the other person, and it says, well, Glenn's a bassist, so I'm going to design this not just based off your prompt, but off of your unique key,
attributes.
So to speak. Yeah, and I can see AI evolving to the point where it responds differently with the same prompt to different people. Like, we're heading in that direction.
And actually, it already does in a way, because no two prompts are going to be exactly the same, because they both started out as complete blank canvases. And even with the exact same words, they won't arrive at the exact same place. That's one of the things that's intriguing, is if you ran the same prompt 1,000 times, you would never get the exact same result any of those times. Like, each one, they would have remarkable similarities in a lot of them, but you'd also get some very different things going on.
And that's where the AI might be throwing in a random seed now and then, and just giving it a little bit of variety.
There's usually a slider actually for how basically how strictly you want it to follow your prompt, where you can have it, all the way to this side where it's do exactly what I say and don't use any of your own interpretation, or you can slide it all the way to the other side where it's almost not listening to your prompt at all and just kind of going freewheeling whatever it wants from there, and you have a slider to go anywhere in between, so you can tailor the amount that you want.
Realistically, if you're doing all those dials and changing the prompt and getting the AI to produce something for you. That's not much different than like, hey, guy picks up a guitar and makes that guitar like do something that's unique to them. AI in that sense is just an instrument. And at
Exactly.
that point, you become the musician again, just with a different instrument.
And whether it's an instrument or a tool, I see it exactly like that. And, even, this artwork right here, was made that way. But again, a lot of that wouldn't have existed had I not prompted it that way. Some of them are actually based off images of Angie. So like you'll see Angie's picture in a couple of these. And, those obviously wouldn't have existed if we didn't take that image of Ange and input it into there and make it do its thing. So, to me, those are derivative works, let's say, where are things that, would not have existed without our input. So to me, those are absolutely our, even though it was generated with AI, I would say that that's a place where we would have a place to stand on for rights for that kind of a thing. But again, it's changing so quickly, and there's so much that you can do with AI at this point that we could sit down and make a whole movie with AI like tomorrow and come out with it. It's just having the ideas, storyboarding the stuff out, and then getting voice. You could do AI voice now. You can do AI actors now. Avatars. You could make everything just kind of happen. It wouldn't be high budget Hollywood level stuff, but I mean, you could have a product to show somebody.
Some of it is starting to look like high budget Hollywood stuff. That's what the whole like Screen Actors Guild lawsuits and strike and everything they've been talking about this year is whether this takes over Hollywood, and it's scary over there. If I was a writer right now, I'd be as concerned as they are.
Yeah. And I mean, same thing if you were an elementary school teacher, like, are kids doing their own homework, or are they just asking GPT, hey, do my homework, and, handing in the thing and not learning anything? I mean, it's a whole other side of it, but it's still, another place that it's changing.
How many parents do you think would be on the side of okay with AI teaching their kids versus they want a human? And depends on the kid's age. I could see high schoolers actually learning from AI a lot easier than grade school. I'd be a little more cautious. You're learning interaction at that point. The teacher student dynamics when you're young, much more important. A high school kid at that point, some of them already know what they want to know, or they go in a direction, and a little AI could actually save them a lot of time.
Yeah, AI can be helpful, but again, you don't want AI to do all the work for them so that they don't learn anything when it comes to learning in school. Like, if you have a book report due, you're supposed to do the book report so that you understand the material and demonstrate that you know the material. But it's easy to say, hey, ChatGPT, write me a report 500 words long on blah, 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 and it'll do it, and then, the teacher now has to determine, is that something that, I don't know, a little off topic.
Well,
it's just another part of it there.
It's not much different than, say, using a calculator to do a complex formula versus like knowing the process of that formula and how did you get to your answer kind of situation.
And that's why a lot of places they wanted you to show your work, whether it was math or whether it was in science. But also one thing I found interesting was when I got to Stevens, when they would give us a physics test, they would actually give us a sheet that had all the formulas on it that you would need for the entire test, but they were in the wrong form. Like they were, instead of being, E equals MC squared, it would be spun around where it's, M equals E over C squared or whatever. And you have to rework the formula to get it in the form that you need.
You have to recognize the formula it's supposed to be.
You have to be able to work with the formula. You have to be able to take it and figure out, okay, well, what I need to figure out is one of the mess that's over on this side. I need to figure out how to get all the mess over on that side and have just the thing I want to find on this side. So it's a matter of, they're more interested in you knowing how to work with the formulas than you memorizing, walking into the test and just repeating in your head, like E equals MC squared, E equals MC squared. Then you sit down, you write it down real quick, and then you never learned anything except to memorize that one little thing. Whereas in this way, they're making sure you understand how to work with the formulas. In the same way, when we had the, in calculus, I think it was, basically I was taking it as a self-paced. So you could just take a module anytime, and there were, 20 something modules would be the whole semester. But you would just go in, take them one, and sit down and do it. If you got a wrong answer, but you got it wrong because you forgot to carry a 1 or something like that, they would actually, there was a teacher's assistant there, and they'd be going over the module with you. And if you had something wrong, they'd be like, okay, well, how did you do this over here? And then you'd walk them through it. And if you had the right idea and you just made a wrong thing here or there, they would even give you credit for that as well, because you understand the process. You just needed to be more meticulous in what you were doing. You know,
Well,
carry
and
the one or whatever.
I think tomorrow's teachers are going to be more focused on teaching, good critical thinking,
Yes.
good prompting, good search approach.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to focus more on the use of these tools and how you approach them, more so than whether you know all the formulas.
Well,
Do
just
you
those
know
three
how
that
to
you just
do you
mentioned.
know how to search for those formulas so that you can get the information?
And that's the thing, is those three that you just mentioned there are huge. The critical thinking of paramount among all, I think, because understanding how to critically think, understanding how to get the information that you need to get off the internet, as well as understanding that there's a lot of misinformation out there and what sources that you can trust versus can't trust, and whether, and that there's no sources that you should trust 100% on every issue. You should do your own research in terms of seeing what other people are saying. Also find out what the other side is saying if you do have a particular lane that you're in, because it's important to know, a lot of times what you are being told is not the full truth anyway. There's some spin on it, whether it's this, good spin, bad spin, whatever. It depends on which side you're listening to. But it's important to just try to look at everything objectively. And one of the things that was always a trigger, triggers me or alerts me to the fact that material is probably less trustworthy is when it's filled with lots of emotion words. Like if it's all about telling you how you should feel about something, like, you should be, you should be fearful of the blah 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 blah, and if they're feeding you how you should feel about things and telling you what you should think about things, then that's not good reporting. Give me the facts. Just like put them on the table and say, you can tell me what your opinion is, or what your conclusion is based on these facts, but I'll make my own conclusion based on the facts.
Yes,
Don't tell me how to feel.
if it's not encouraging you to seek more information to come up with a conclusion, then get a second opinion. Because any source that is like insisting that you have to just take their word for it, and they're not encouraging you to go form your own opinion, those are the sources that are trying to think for you.
Exactly. And that is no good. Think for yourself.
Yes,
AI can help you, but all those ways, like you said, prompt crafting and knowing how to search and knowing how to find information is very important. And being open to information. That's the other thing. A lot of people, they aren't interested. Like they just, they could spend days just watching reruns of whatever, rather than actually going and searching on the internet and finding out, 3 or 4 random things that they didn't know before. Me, send me shit I don't know. I love it. Like I love it.
And that's the problem with young kids and teachers, whether they're promoting them to be open-minded or closed-minded. I mean, it is the critical thinking mentality, grade school, like kindergarten to like towards middle school. Those years, those teachers have the biggest challenge of tomorrow. Do you want to bring up closed-minded kids, or do you want to bring up open-minded kids? Our future needs open-minded kids. So I hope they don't stress closed-minded too much. Don't create robots and drones. Create tomorrow's thinkers so they are ready for this challenge that we're about to face.
Yeah, because we have a lot of problems that need out of the box thinking for solutions, and that is, that's one of the things that I kind of specialized in with doing tech support for years and years. It was always about figuring out how to solve problems, and how to solve problems where sometimes the problems don't make any, or the problems or solutions don't seem to make any sense. And some people just sit there and beat their head against the wall, like, I keep trying the thing that we do to fix the thing, but it's not working, right? So we have to try something else, right? So we have to figure out what to try to make this work.
And problems were meant to be solved. So if we have a problem, there's a solution just waiting to be had, and we need to train those brains.
Yep. And being able to fix things, like, fixing things with a piece of, paper clip or a wire or whatever, like that kind of a thing is the kind of stuff,
I love the MacGyver approach.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
To me, I'm a MacGyver. When I was trying to build that studio back in the 90s, there's a lot of like hacks that I would do just to like not have to spend hundreds of dollars, but look, I just made a hook and wired up like this mic without having to pay $100 for a stand.
Yep. One of my favorites was a scanner, like a multi-document scanner. You could throw 50 pages on it, and it would zip 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 zip, scan them all in. And they had broken. Somebody threw something through there that jammed it, popped something off. A small little plastic piece broke off, but I could see exactly what the problem was. And now I was just scanning through like 5 pages at once, and you can't have that because you need all the pages. Right? So
yeah,
I ended up I saw exactly where the problem was. I saw exactly what I needed, and I actually used a staple. Like a staple that was not yet, punched through like any paper, just, straight. And I used that and was able to bend it just right and, tested it with a bunch of different things. I showed them, I'm like, look, I fixed it with this because, we could order, a whole nother thing, but it's going to be, it's going to take time to get here, blah, blah, blah. But this works now. And, if it stops working, let me know. I can come, we take a look, try to fix it again or whatever. But it's just one of those things, being able to fix something like that with something like that was, was a good one.
MacGyver would be so proud of you to use the staple like that. Like he could kill a man with a staple.
If he needed to, yes. Exactly.
So that was at Rick Beato. Great discussion there. Like we do have to have another AI night. Last one we had was actually during the spring, and so much has changed.
Mm-hmm.
Before or going into the new year, we'll have to AI everything.
Yeah, exactly. And if you're not paying attention, I mean, it's going to come it's going to wash over the world when you're not looking. It's kind of crazy.
And then you will be in a transition. Speaking of our next video. Oh,
good transitions.
I had a picture for that one, but let's bring up his site. Because we have been to this site. It's another great one for next gen music makers, and he's for real about that. He covers a lot of different things, and for this one, he's going to be talking about 5 easy tricks for seamless transitions between songs. Something that
song sections.
Yeah, song for the progressive music maker that has 5 parts that he wants to mash together into the killer prog rock song, and getting those sections to seamlessly, because the ear can tell when something is abruptly changed. It doesn't mean it sounds bad, but it has a different effect on the listener than something that seamlessly shifts and transitions into another part.
And sometimes it's as easy as there's just another part missing in between, where I've got this verse and I've got this chorus and I like the two of them and they go well together, but they don't slide together just right. It's that's where the pre-chorus goes. So now you've got a verse, you got a chorus, and there's this pre-chorus will get you from the verse to the chorus, but you got to figure out what that is. And that's where hopefully we'll get some ideas, some good tricks from here.
And sometimes it's like a DJ approach where they'll use just an effect to whoosh out of one part, and next thing you know, totally different beat, different tempo. But if you just use that effect properly, you can transition that way.
Exactly.
DJs do it all the time on the fly.
And that's why it's a good skill to get, the DJ thing, because that would help you with your transitions and helps you get that feel of how to get things, get these two songs to work together, even if they're not the same speed. You speed this one up or slow this one down, bring the tempo or bring the key up or down to get them to match. You can do all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and a lot of us who are more traditional musicians, we tend to think of DJs as non-musicians, they're using samples, but appreciate they are using it like an instrument, what they do. And I think every good musician should understand DJ mentality. They benefit each other.
They do. One thing I would say though is that DJ versus musicians is that a DJ, anybody could go in and press play on a track and get something started. So anybody could look like they're a proficient DJ, whereas not everybody could just pick up a guitar and look like they're a proficient musician, right?
True, but when you look at the real DJs that are out there that grind and actually go out there and become big names, they're not just hitting play. They have controllers and
And not trying to take away from the DJs that are doing all that, just saying that, it is possible to be an imposter, where you just walk up and press play and look, hey, I'm the DJ. Look, like I did it. It's
Well,
that's not all that it takes, right?
it's possible for somebody to pick up a guitar and look like they're Yngwie, and they
They're not
don't
gonna pull it off.
actually they don't actually do it.
Well, like they say though, it's like what, 80% of how you look. So you're like, yeah. If you get up there and you put on the mean face and you get it, you make it look like you really know what you're doing, then maybe you'll get away with it.
Well,
Like,
hey,
the cable wasn't plugged in. Oh, bummer, right?
the mean face is like 80% of the battle.
Exactly.
Now you just got to learn the solo.
Yep. Just got to tap your, shake your head in time, and then you're good to go. But let's see, what does Maddie have to say about tricks for seamless transitions between song sections?
Yeah, let's learn how to transition.
Folks, Maddie here with another video. Today's topic, getting your song parts to blend together like the frozen banana in your song's tropical smoothie. But seriously, today we're going to help you make professional song transitions between the different parts of your song. We'll take your song from this to this. Can you hear the difference? Can you feel the emotions? I know I can. And pretty soon you'll have the power to craft these seamless transitions yourself. Let's hop in. If you don't think song transitions are important, well, they are. An amateur might not worry about how different parts of the verse meshes into the chorus or how the chorus blends into the bridge, but trust me, they're important. A smooth transition paves the way towards professionalism. But more than that, it just sounds way better. Would you rather have your listeners identify the blocks of MIDI you use to create the song, or would you rather have them get lost in the emotionality? Good transitions make any changes seamless and keep the listener hooked. So hopefully now you're on board with the transition train. But now let's discover how to make them. Here are 5 ways I use to make seamless transitions. By the way, I saved my favorite one for last, so stick around so you can see that one. Tip number 1, play with dynamics. Dynamics greatly impact the emotions of a song. A quiet, intimate whisper vocal is sure to bring up different feelings than a loud, screaming rock anthem. And you can use this to your advantage. If you know that your chorus is going to be filled with energy and instruments, don't just all of a sudden lead into that. Sometimes it's better to gradually build that energy and dynamics as the song progresses. Take a look at this example. As the chorus comes, more instruments are getting added. From right where it's getting louder. Where we are. Which makes that impact so much more satisfying. At the beginning of this, there's hardly anything going on. Fades away when you're in. That's the whole point. We're going from a spot of really quiet and gradually building up to that chorus to take the listeners on a journey. This prepares the listeners for what's to come and makes it oh so satisfying when it finally drops. On the other hand, you may choose to contrast the song parts even more by making the transition abrupt and sudden. But you should really consider these other tips I'll share before making a decision. Tip number 2, use some reverb. It's a tale as old as time. You've got one part with a bunch of instruments and the next part with only a few. How can you better combine the two? Well, I'll tell you. You hear those rhymes? The key is reverb. At the end of a song section, we can automate reverb to fill in the gap between our parts a bit better. With a long reverb tail, the bass suddenly doesn't just die out, but slowly fades as the rest of the instruments start to take over. Think of reverb as the glue holding the paper mache creation together. Without it, you just have a big mess and a bunch of newspaper. Let me show you it in action. Take a listen to this transition part before, and then we'll add reverb and we'll compare it to after. So this is before. I hope you know the world fades away. It's not bad, but we can make this more seamless if we add some reverb to that bass part like I mentioned earlier. So we'll go into our bass here. I believe this is it. So we found the bass part. Let's go into here. We're going to add reverb directly onto the track itself. We're going to put the wet all the way down to 0. I'm going to put the length up a bit as well. And we'll just use this preset and see how it sounds. Click A on our keyboard. We'll click on Space Designer like we just did. And we'll go to Output Wet. We're going to put one automation node here, another here, and we'll drag this up so that we can start to hear it more as the song progresses. Check this out. I really like that, but I want to make this effect more prominent so that you guys can hear it over on the YouTube side of things. Ancient church, that's got to be a long one. 5 seconds, yeah, that's for sure long. Our automation should have stayed the same, but let's hear what it sounds like. Cool. Let's hear that in the mix of the song. You'll hear that it's going to transition a bit better.
I hope you know the world fades away.
I think that bass actually has too much reverb. I'm gonna turn that down.
I hope you know the world fades away.
Nice. Very subtle, but that's melting together a little bit better than it was before, all thanks to reverb. Let's move on to tip number 3. Tip number 3 is to incorporate crashes, risers, and reverses. Crashes, risers, and reverses all help to build on those important emotions of the listener. A well-placed crash on the downbeat of an energetic chorus can hook the listener in and give the start much more impact and power. Add a riser beforehand to build the tension before the drop. And finally, a reverse sound can lead into the chorus in a creative but entrancing way. Let me show you it in action. Hear that riser in the background?
Right where we are, where we are.
Hear that crash on beat 1. That's all putting things together. Let me show you how to make a reverse sound to get some really interesting effects. I'm actually going to make this reverse right between these two sections so we can better meld these two together. To do this, I'm going to reverse a specific vocal from this chorus. This is my main box here, and I'm going to duplicate this track, and I'm going to use my marquee tool to click and drag this particular sound right here out. Before we reverse it though, we want to add some reverb on the track specifically. So we'll go back into Space Designer, we'll go into Wet, and we'll turn this up quite a bit. We're also going to change our preset to something a little bit larger. Let's go into Rooms, let's go into Clean Room, let's go into 2.28, that sounds good to me. So we're actually going to bounce that down with that reverb on it. It's going to create a new track with the reverb tail that we just made. We'll extend this out as much as we can because there's going to be some information here from the reverb that we just can't see in the waveform. Then we'll click on this, we'll go on File, Functions, Reverse, and all of a sudden our waveform is reverse. Let's take a listen to what this sounds like just in the reverse. Nice. So I'm going to just cut it off a little bit shorter so that's a little bit more abrupt, but it's sounding good. We'll put this right before this chorus. We'll also take the gain on this and turn it up a little bit so we can hear it a bit better. Go into gain here, turn this up, and let's hear what this sounds like.
I hope you know the world fades.
Now what this is missing is that same reverb that we had before. We're going to want to add that back in. So I'll open up my mixer, I'll find the track I had selected, and I'm going to drag that reverb over to this new track so that we get that same effect that we had before. It's sounding a bit too dry for my liking. So here we go. There you go. And there's a quick reverse vocal swell to help bridge the gap even more between these parts.
I hope you know the world fades away.
It's really subtle, but it's giving that extra characteristic to lead you in. All of those can add some serious impact to your sound, but they're still not my favorite way. Stick around for number 5 to see the best way, my favorite way, of making seamless transitions. Tip number 4. Tip number 4 is to add drum fills. A song transition list would just be incomplete without the granddaddy of all transitions, the legendary drum fill. The drums keep the beat in the song flowing, and when they alter the chorus to perform a few rolls on the snare drum, people sense a change in the winds. A classic drum fill helps distinguish between two different sections that can build up the energy or bring it down. They are an absolutely vital tool to helping keep the transition effective and seamless. Let me show you how. Alright, so I'm hearing a little tom fill in my head that's going to really bring this transition that we've been working on between the verse and the pre-chorus together. So I'm going to record the idea I have in my head on this, and then I'll use some adjustments to add it.
Trade. I hope you know the world fades.
Really subtle, but I'm just adding 3 tom hits, kind of a triplet type sound on the off beats just so you can hear it.
I hope you know the
quantize those, and we're also going to add some serious amount of reverb to this part right here.
I hope you know the I hope you know the world fades. I hope you know the world.
It's a little bit too loud for my liking. I kind of want them more subtle, so I'll turn the velocity down.
I hope you know the.
I'm also going to add this acoustic drum kit. I know that it has a ride cymbal right at the end here, so I'm going to add that. Oh, what a good click. First try. I'm a pro. So this is what we have with this drum kit now in this little fill that we have.
I hope you know the world fades away.
Notice how that drum fill helps to bring it together. The slowing down of the toms really helps the slowdown of the rest of the song. We sense that slowdown in the toms, we hear something different in the drums, and we can sense that new part is coming. It's exactly what I'm going for. All right, on to tip number 5, my favorite tip, and it's use pauses. This sounds simple, and it is, but it keeps people coming back for more and more and more and more. In a song, there's almost nothing more gripping than the sound of silence. And if we can really build up a listener's attention, then drop out all the instruments, even just for a split second. When we finally bring them back in, we've got something that feels so satisfying. This is my favorite transition to use, but I do warn to use it sparingly. It's really cool to have instruments drop out for a beat or two, but if you do it too long, the listener will be long gone. This technique also works best, in my opinion, when the vocal line can pick up some of the silence and continue singing over it. It emphasizes the vocals and prepares people to want more. Here's how I did it in this song. You probably already noticed it before, but let me point it out again. Going back up to the chorus, I dropped out all of the instruments before finally getting to the drop. From right where we are, where we are. Right, that voice is filling that gap. That's like the main thing that you're focused on, the line where we are, but everything else drops out. From right where we are, where we are. And then when it finally drops, it's that much more impactful, that much more emotionally charged. I'm telling you, you'd be surprised how many songs drop out instruments like that and then introduce them for even more of a big impact when it comes to the chorus or the drop or whatever part song transition they're going for. And dang, that song is sounding a bit better after adding some of those song transitions, and the parts are coming together a little bit more seamlessly. Song transitions are an often overlooked part of the song production process, but getting it right makes the final product so much better. And notice I didn't make drastic changes. These are subtle things that all add up to a big end result. You don't necessarily need to use any one of these aforementioned tips between every song part, but you should start thinking about incorporating some of them into your workflow. Your mixes, your listeners, and even your pet cat will undoubtedly thank you. Make sure to subscribe for more production content like this. See you in the next one.
Yep, depends on the topic. Some nights it's music. Some nights we're talking about music. Tonight we talk about music.
Well, actually, we have a whole grab bag tonight. Tonight is like Santa's like bag of tricks.
We even went to Congress.
Yes, we went to DC. And
Good
those were some power tips when it comes to like effective, especially in pop, more so than some other genres. But like a lot of the tips he was showing there really work good in like pop and like the dance world. The reverse effect, very popular, great way to transition. The little bit of drum roll right before you hit the part change, another one that's doesn't take a lot. It's not complicated or a lot of work, and it has such an impact. And the pause is fifth tip.
Yep.
Something that you should always be keeping in the back of your mind, like, is there a moment in this song where that kind of pause can really just kick in to the chorus?
I really like that reverse vocal swell where you just take that little piece of a vocal. It's like, just take that little piece here, so you flip it around, put a little tail on it, flip it around, put some more reverb on it, listen back to it, and it was like a perfect build up into that next little part. So that
Well, and that's a trick that, like, you know, over the since we've been in the digital age, you know, the last 20 or so years, taking a track, duplicating it, reversing the track, adding reverb to it, reversing it back. And then in his case, he added a second reverb to the reverse reverb track, and it creates this like crazy whoosh.
in a good way.
Oh, and tell me he is not like Casey Kasem reincarnated. Like when he came in, I was like, damn, he's about to show us tonight's top 40.
Exactly.
He has the voice.
Maddie. Well done.
Maddie has had some great tips for us on different nights. I wish I'd actually seen this one for our reverb night, because the reverb tips between tip number 2 and number 4 Great stuff.
Absolutely.
At music-by-Maddie on YouTube and musicbymaddie.com. Go to the mothership.
Very cool.
Now, volume, especially for guitarists,
volume
is a topic that like has been needed to be had.
Absolutely.
It's one of those instruments where like getting the right volume in your mix can be a challenge.
Absolutely. And having the wrong volume really stands out. And that's like you're saying, like it could be a track that's totally fine, totally great. 30 seconds in, all of a sudden there's one instrument part that comes in and it's just a little bit too loud or just a little bit too soft. And it's just, you immediately notice it. At least I do.
And with you see this problem in live situations. And that's where like sometimes if you don't have some good sound engineers helping to do the testing beforehand, you can end up with like a guitarist that eats up everything else. I saw Yngwie in a small club in Connecticut one year, and I could not hear anything but him. And I'm sure he loved that, but it sucked for everybody else.
I was even saying at the, just at an open jam that we go to over here, there was one particular night where we were sitting all the way across the bar from the stage. So like the stage is playing out that way and we're, way back over here. But the one guitar amp was pointed right at us. And from all the way across the bar, it was ripping our faces off. Like we couldn't have a conversation and we couldn't hear really the rest of the band over that one guitar. And it was just because it happened to be pointed straight at our faces, even though it was mic and being sent through the mains. So if it was aimed any other direction, you would get the appropriate amount because there is a sound guy who's mixing and getting just enough, but he doesn't realize that he's killing that side of the bar with that one amp going straight over that way.
Well, and a good sound guy will actually check it from different locations to make sure there's a balance with all of that.
Exactly. And you can't have it, perfectly sounding in every spot around the room. There's going to be spots, behind this pole, or it's going to be, reflecting for that wall and, cause
if you're going to sit right next to the damn speaker, then shame on you.
Got to sit where you got to sit though,
So this one's coming from at Stein Music Lessons, another one that like we've looked at on our guitar nights. Great guitar tips. Solid guitar channel. World's most sought after guitar instructor. Ooh, them's fighting words.
And Uni made a point there that the guitar, the amp is really starting to work right when it gets loud. Yep, there's plenty of truth to that, and that's why a lot of times people, when they're recording a guitar sound, like they'll put an amp in a closet with a microphone so that they can have the amp on 8 and be able to just send record it at that volume and just bring it out from a signal, bring it to the board, and then you can hear it at an appropriate volume without ripping everybody to shreds.
Hey, isolated like that with a mic is a good way to get a capture.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
that's one way to do it.
So volume and tone for performance.
Yes, or rehearsal. Performance or rehearsal.
Yeah.
Let's check it out.
Up your amplifier's volume optimally for a live performance. Now, everybody's different when it comes to this sort of thing, but I do get a lot of questions on this. And so we're really not talking today about using maybe a digital amp with in-ear monitors where you're going to be at a really low volume from a stage perspective because that's what's needed. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's perfectly fine. What I'm going to talk about more is when you want to have significant amount of amplifier volume on stage and trying to set that up appropriately. So the big difference for me is when I play in certain bands, it depends on what band I'm playing in, but if I'm playing in a band where I need my guitar amp to be louder because I'm looking for desirable feedback, right? And I want some sort of response from the amplifier when I'm playing. As a tube amp turns up, you often will get this compression that happens, and there's just an overall kind of excitement that happens with the synergy between the guitar and the amplifier and, of course, the player. Now, again, it's different for everybody, and, I'm not saying that a tube is better than a digital. That's not what I'm saying at all. What I am saying, though, is that there are times when I'm playing on stage where I want that volume and I want to have feedback and I want that sort of thing for the style of music that I'm playing. And if I'm playing at a really, really low volume, I'm not going to get those sorts of things. So what are some things that I think about that might be something that you'd think about as well? Well, number one is when you're setting up your amp tone, maybe you're in your studio or in your room or whatever it might be. One thing you want to be careful of is that you're not trying to set your guitar tone at a really, really low volume and then you're going to get to practice, you're going to get to a performance, and now you're going to turn it up really, really loud because it's going to feel and sound different. Okay, there's this thing you can look up called the Fletcher-Munson curve, and basically, just to summarize the idea is our ears perceive things differently at a lower volume versus a louder volume. And oftentimes what will happen, and this is just a generalization, but it does sound different, obviously, but if you're playing at a lower volume, sometimes maybe your mid-range will sound more prominent and the lows and highs will be a little more subtle. And then as you turn up, it kind of does the opposite. Now, again, that might not be your experience, but it is going to sound different. So one thing that I always recommend is make sure that you're practicing and you're setting up your amp volume or your amp settings at the volume that you'd expect to be playing. Now, if you've never played live before, you don't know what volume you're going to be at. Or if you're using a different amp, you're now using a 50 watt versus a 100 watt or a 20 watt versus a 50 watt or something like that. All of that's going to make a difference. Okay. But the more you play, the more you get used to the volume, understanding what volume, not in terms of the turning of the knob, but just in general, what kind of volume you'd be playing at. So I'm going to use this Synergy amp as an example. So there's a band that I play with where we do all instrumental stuff, and I tend to run my Synergy amp right around 40 to 50%. Okay, that's kind of the volume that with the players that I play with, I tend to run the volume of this particular 50 watt amp. So I know that going in. So when I'm setting up my tone and I want to make sure that everything is kind of the way I like it, I'm going to test it out and set it up around that volume. I don't want it set at 10% and then I'm setting it all up. So when I get there and turn it up to 40%, it sounds completely different in my brain than it did when I was practicing. I want to get used to it at that volume. So that's something that's very important. The other thing that you want to think about is the distance at which you are away from the amplifier. So for instance, if I was I can touch it from here. If I was literally this far from the amplifier and I was at 40%, it's probably going to feed back a whole lot versus being back, another 10 feet from where we are, or maybe another 15 or even 20 feet from where I am right now. So that's going to make a difference as well. And again, if I'm setting it up ideally, if I've got a bunch of shows coming up, or maybe there's a tour coming up or something like that, I kind of want to have the idea dialed in about how far away that amp would be for my ideal sound. Now, every stage is going to be different. If you're going out on tour or something, every stage is going to be different. And so sometimes that amp might be further back, and sometimes it might be a little bit closer, and you're going to have to make adjustments, and that's okay. But we're not talking the difference between, again, the volume being at 5% and the volume being at 50%. That's not going to happen. It's just how far back is it, and might you need to readjust that volume, or how close is it, and you might need to do the same thing. The other thing that I think makes a big difference is really two things. Number one is, where are you in proximity to the push of the speakers? So for instance, oftentimes when I play, I don't have the amp right behind me. I tend to have it off to the side just a little bit from where I'm standing. That's just how I've gotten used to hearing it over the years in my brain. So I don't have it set up right behind me, where you might. That might be exactly how you like to have the amp, is set up right behind you when you play. But you want to be aware of that. You want to get used to how it sounds. And the other thing I think makes a difference is whether or not you're running, maybe a 212 that sits toward the floor, or a 412 like this that's a little bit higher up. Obviously if I stand up, my ears aren't sitting right in front of these speakers. Okay? Or maybe you're running a combo amp and you have it on a stand and the stand is at an angle, facing you. Everybody's different in that way. But again, find what works for you and then think about how far away you are from that amp, or whether or not that amp is right behind you, right beside you, off to the side a little bit, whatever it might be, and then start thinking about that volume a little bit. So when I'm dialing in a guitar tone with whatever amp I'm going to be using, I know I'm going to want some element of controllable feedback because I use that a lot when I'm playing. Maybe in a solo, I hit a last note and I want that to kind of ring out. I'm going to adjust things relative to that if possible. If I'm playing in a band where I can't have that kind of volume, well, then that's not really an option that I have, So I'm going to have to just bypass that and do some other things, and that's okay too. But it's just something to think about a little bit in dialing that in, because I get a lot of people that ask about playing in a band or playing on stage, and they're new to the whole experience. And so, they've gotten used to what we'll call a bedroom tone or a bedroom volume at playing at a certain volume. Now, all of a sudden, they're in band rehearsal and they can't hear themselves. So they start turning way up. And now the sonic experience is just night and day different than what they had experienced practicing in their room. And again, I think that's trial by fire. That's something that we all have to kind of go through if you're new to this. But if you understand this, at least you have an idea after that rehearsal or after that performance or whatever, what volume your amp is at now, where the amp was, where you were, all that sort of thing relative to the amp. And now start thinking, okay, when I get back, I want to start trying to maybe set this up a little bit, understanding now this is the volume I'm going to be playing at. Therefore, maybe I need to readjust my low end a little bit, or my presence a little bit, or my mid-range a little bit, whatever it might be. So hopefully that helps you a little bit, gives you something to think about this week. I hope you have a wonderful week. Take care. Of course, stay positive and keep practicing. And if you're looking for any guitar lesson needs, do me a huge favor and head over to guitarzoom.com and check out our All Access membership. And again, have a great week, and I'll talk to you soon. Okay? Great week, and I'll talk to you soon. Okay?
Oh, you can find Steve at guitarzoom.com.
Yes, indeed.
He's got a mothership.
Excellent.
Now,
excellent point there.
You know why I love doing what we do, and when we get videos like this where he mentioned the Fletcher-Munson effect. Fletcher-Munson curve. Yeah, I'm going to have to go down this rabbit hole.
You are, and you're gonna have to report back, because I want to hear about this too. That is one that I was interested in. Also, just as far as the bedroom tone, like that's exactly what my issue was with guitar. Like understanding that I usually play, and I always play through my headphones, and I don't play through a guitar effect rig first. Like I just plug in my guitar into this same mixer that I'm talking the microphone through right now. Then it comes up into my headphones, so it's just very clean tone. You've heard me play my guitar; it's very clean, but it doesn't have any interaction with an amp, and there's no amp sim, and it's not, I could do, there's ways I could make it happen. There's ways I can hook up effects, but I just got used to just playing, scales and doing practice and figuring songs out, but I never got used to the interaction with the amp. So that's one of the things that I like doing a lot in the studio now, is just the interaction with the amp and playing actually at volume and playing with the controls and seeing the interaction. That's what I'd missed in most of my guitar experience before that, by playing in the headphones and keeping it quiet.
And a lot of his advice actually applies to other instruments as well, just for general volume control. But I do like he emphasized when it comes to guitar, especially if you have that feedback style where you bring up the volume, and some guitarists do it with a knob, others, like you mentioned, might do it with a expression pedal, but it's an important thing for those guitarists who have that style.
Yep. Absolutely. And the other interesting point was about how the mid-range might be more pronounced at a certain volume, and the highs and lows be more pronounced at other volumes. And that's something that I hadn't really considered, but it does make total sense why for one thing people will switch from one pickup to another, going into a solo, for example, to get a totally different tone and have more highs jump out if they're going into a solo, for example, or if they're going to jump back into a rhythm roll, they want to have something that's more clean, or just more background, they'll back it off.
See, those are the kinds of things that I think the advanced guitarists, that's what's on their minds.
Absolutely. And a lot you can control just from your fingers too, like how hard you actually pluck with a pick or with your fingers, and how much you do muting with your hands. I mean, all of that has a huge impact on how loud you are and how, you know, how much your sound carries.
Yes, great stuff, Steve. At Stein Music Lessons on YouTube, and was it guitarzoom.com? His website.
Indeed.
Yeah, for you guitarists out there, like, good source.
Excellent.
Now look at these toys.
Is this what Santa's bringing you?
I hope so. Any one of those. I will take any one of them.
Control Surface Guide.
And this one's coming from Lonely Rocker at Lonely Rocker on YouTube. Guitar and gear in my home studio. Well, what else do we need? I would use any of those.
Lonely Rocker.
And this is a review of, you know, different control surfaces. Doesn't matter which DAW you use. Chances are the DAW has a learning function. And if it does, these kind of controllers, you move a slider, you tell the DAW to learn, you move a slider, the DAW now knows that slider. Change a knob, the DAW now knows it. And if it's a with these, chances are if you're using like Ableton or you know, some of the Logic and Pro Tools, sometimes they come ready to talk right to that DAW with templates that are good to go.
Yeah, you could definitely know the workflow with these, and the learn function just made such a huge difference. Just having any controller around, you could just, you know, it doesn't matter what the knob says. It's like, oh, I want to be able to move this and have it do that. Well, press learn, move this, and it'll do that.
Yeah, and most importantly, it speeds up. It speeds up the recording process. It speeds up the mixing process. These surfaces can help you have a natural approach and will speed up some of the workflow.
Absolutely.
Main reason why I want some.
And they're all laid out for you right there. See which one of them is going to fit in your stocking, though. That's the question.
I will get a bigger sock.
Get one the size of a hefty garbage bag and put them all in there.
Actually, I'll just borrow one of your socks. They got to be pretty big.
You could fit maybe 2 or 3 of those in there. All right, let's check it out for the DAW Surface DAW Control Surface Guide. There we go.
Just thought about doing this video. This was the money shot that I had in my head. What do you think? Well, if you're into DAW controllers, why don't you join me? So clearly today I'm talking about DAW controllers. Now, those of you who follow my channel know that my studio is well stocked in Icon gear. In fact, recently I did a buyer's guide on all the Icon product lines, and a number of you asked me, what about other brands? So I thought, what a great idea. So I reached out to my good friends at Long McQuaid, that's Canada's largest musical instrument retailer with over 80 stores across Canada. There's never one too far away. A special mention to the North York location, that's North Toronto, that's close to where I live. Frank, who's the manager of that store, helped me pull this together by bringing in some additional brands. So a big shout out to all the guys at North York, been really a big help to me as of late, and I really do appreciate it. So we've got Behringer, we've got Personas, and we've got SSL. So what my plan is today is I'm going to create 3 categories. We're going to pare this down a little bit, but we're going to have 3 main categories from entry level up to the more expensive models. Now, Icon has one of the most extensive lineups of DAW controllers, so they're going to be well represented in this video, but we do have the 3 other brands here. And we're just going to look at the different features to see, you know, which one might be good for you if you're planning to add one to your studio. Now, speaking of a home studio, there's a lot of components you need to buy. And if you're in the process of building a studio, where in the process should you be getting a DAW controller? Well, I'm going to share my thoughts on that a little bit later. Well, we got a lot to cover, so let's get started. So for the controllers to qualify for this guide, they had to meet 2 criteria. Number 1, they had to have motorized faders. I'll explain why that's important in a minute. And the other thing is they had to have universal support for most major DAWs. Now, one minor exception is PreSonus, as they have Studio One, and there's some really integrated features with their DAW controllers, but these controllers also work with other DAWs. So if there's something about this unit that you like and you're not a Studio One user, know that you can use this as well. All right, let's start with the first category, and that's the single fader controllers. In the one fader category, we have the Behringer X-Touch 1 and the Icon Pro Audio Platform Nano Air. A one fader device can be mistaken for an entry-level controller. Based on price, that certainly can be the case, but many pro mixers have moved to in-the-box. So a one fader controller can bring flexible access to transport controls and for writing automation. And of course, when space is an issue. Let's start by taking a look at the Behringer X-Touch 1. The X-Touch 1 is a universal control surface that supports Huey and Mackie control for support across most major DAWs. It has a 100mm touch-sensitive fader, one rotary encoder, 34 illuminated function buttons, an 8-segment LED level indicator, large jog shuttle wheel, and full transport controls. Next up is the Platform Nano Air from Icon Pro Audio. The Platform Nano Air from Icon has one touch-sensitive motorized fader with 10-bit resolution. It has a backlit scribble strip display, 12-segment level indicator, 12-segment LED time display, plus LED indicators around the rotary encoders. Speaking of which, it has 5 rotary encoders, 39 multicolored backlit function buttons with 5 layers of programmable functions, jog shuttle wheel, and full transport controls. And this device is wireless with a built-in 2.4G wireless module. It also supports Mackie and Huey protocols for compatibility across most major DAWs. So both of these devices highlight why I feel it's important for your controller to have a motorized fader, because it doesn't matter how big or small your project is, that single fader will control your entire project. All you have to do is highlight it in your DAW and it will activate the fader for that particular track, which means it doesn't matter how small this is, it can handle any size project. And the motorized fader gives you instant recall as the level of the fader follows the level of the active track in your DAW and vice versa. So there's never any guessing. The differences between the two, the X-Touch 1, now I will say it was hard to get this and there are some supply chain issues with certain brands, nothing to do with retail. It's the reason why Mackie is not in this video. I wanted to have Mackie represented, just couldn't get a unit at the time of this video anyways, but I wanted Behringer in the mix here. This is a great entry-level controller, or if you're an in-the-box user and you just want some specific functions, you can definitely get that out of this particular unit. Looks like you got a nice fader here, big jog shuttle wheel, easy access to your transport controls, nicely well-built unit for the money. It's definitely a great basic controller and can handle, like I said, any size project. Now by comparison, the Platform Nano Air from Icon, this is a pretty versatile little controller. Now it shares all the same benefits as the X-Touch, but there are some additional features with this one. Now for one, this screen here is an add-on. When you buy the basic controller, it ends here, but if you want some more visual on your controller, you can add this D3 screen. Also, there's additional rotary encoders here where the X-Touch has the one that's shared just for additional control. Plus these layer keys here, these function keys are all actually in 5 different layers, so there's a lot of information that can be programmed into this controller. It gives you a lot of control. And really the big feature about this one, aside from the fact that this one's wireless, so you can take it on the go, you don't need any power, this one needs to be plugged in, is the fact that this is part of a modular system. The platform series of controllers, which I actually have them here, they all conform, they're all the same size. So if you're thinking in the future that you might want to expand to a bigger controller, you can expand it using the platform series controllers. We've got the extenders. I've got the main unit over here with the additional transport controls and assignment functions here. And the Platform B+, which gives you some more function buttons here. So it's a highly modular system. So if you're looking for a single controller and you think you might want to expand in the future, then you might want to consider the Platform Nano from Icon Pro Audio. If you need at least 8 channels of control, I've got 2 devices in the mid-range category. The PreSonus FaderPort 8 and the Icon Pro Audio QCon Pro G2. Let's take a look at the FaderPort 8 from PreSonus. The FaderPort 8 has 8 touch-sensitive 100mm motorized faders, 8 scribble strip displays, full transport controls with jog shuttle wheel, 1 rotary encoder, various function buttons for event controls, channel controls, navigation, and automation, as well as dedicated solo mute and select buttons for each fader. It has native mode for integration with Studio One, plus Huey and Mackie control for support for most other major DAWs. And now for a controller that I've actually had here in my studio for a few years. This is the Icon Pro Audio QCon Pro G2. The QCon Pro G2 is a tough aluminum and metal device. It has 8 touch-sensitive motorized channel faders with 12-segment LED level indicators for each channel, plus a dedicated motorized master fader. 8 dual-function rotary encoders with 11-segment LED position indicators, large backlit LCD display, 12-segment time display, 78 function buttons, jog shuttle wheel, and full transport controls. It is expandable up to 64 channels with the EXG2 extender. It is also compatible with most major DAWs with Huey and Mackie support. So looking at these two devices together, the biggest difference I think is obvious. It's the size of the units. But let's take a look at the FaderPort 8 first. Now, if you're a Studio One user, it's almost a no-brainer to go with this controller because there's going to be some tight-knit integration. But really, it comes down to what you expect of the controller. In fact, I did a whole video about that because for me, I mix. I use the pan controls, definitely do some automation and transport controls. That's about as far as I get with my controllers. But if you want to go deeper, if you want that really tight-knit integration, if you are a Studio One user, you definitely want to consider this without a doubt. However, if you're looking to get a universal controller, you can still consider the FaderPort 8 because it will work with all different DAWs. And if you just don't have the space, but you want 8 faders, you're going to get that with the FaderPort 8, where obviously the G2 is going to take up a lot more space. But this is a more substantial unit, definitely a lot bigger, a lot more space in between the faders. Here, they're all really close together. If you've got the space and you want something a little more substantial, this is all metal construction, all metal and aluminum, I believe. And you've got individual rotary encoders for every channel. You have a dedicated master fader. So it comes down to what you want. And two really great devices here, a little bit more compact, and like I said, tighter integration with Studio One. I think a more substantial controller here with more independent controls per track and a dedicated master fader. If you're looking for an expandable high-end controller, I've got the UF8 from Solid State Logic and the QCon Pro X from Icon Pro Audio. First up in the premium controller category is the SSL UF8. The UF8 is a premium smart controller with an all-metal construction. It has 8 touch-sensitive 100mm motorized faders, high-resolution colored displays for each channel, 8 dual-function rotary encoders, 43 assignable function keys, 5 banks of 8 user keys plus 3 quick keys. The intelligent channel encoder provides mouse scroll emulation and deep plug-in control. It can support 3 DAWs at once and is highly customizable with the SSL 360 app. It can be expanded by adding additional UF8 units. And the last one up, but certainly not least, is a controller that I use here in my studio. This is the Icon Pro Audio QCon Pro X. The QCon Pro X is a durable controller with an all-metal construction. It has 8 touch-sensitive motorized channel faders with 12-segment LED level indicators for each channel, plus a dedicated motorized master fader. Each channel has dedicated solo, mute, record, and select buttons. There are 8-function dual rotary encoders with 11-segment LED position indicators, 2 large backlit LCD displays, 12-segment time display, dedicated user-definable keys in the assignment section, jog shuttle wheel, and full transport controls. It is expandable up to 64 channels with the QCon Pro XS extender. It also has the optional Auto Detect panel, which automatically configures your controller for your favorite DAW and removes the need for an overlay. It is also compatible with most major DAWs with Huey and Mackie support. Now these are 2 premium DAW controllers with very different philosophies. Now certainly you can look at the size difference. I mean, size is an issue. Keep your head out of the gutter. But it depends on the size of your studio. This is quite a substantial, large unit here, where the SSL is a more streamlined device. But like I said, they have 2 very different philosophies. And let's start with the SSL. Now, all controllers communicate with the DAW the same way through these predefined protocols. You've got Huey, which is like Pro Tools, Mackie, which handles the load for a lot of other DAWs. That's predefined. So these controllers have to conform to those protocols. But it's what they do before that really makes the difference. And this is a smart controller where there's a lot of programmability in this device, a lot of things you can do to customize it for your workflow that a lot of other DAW controllers can't do. For example, where this device has a dedicated transport controls, this one doesn't. It's all part of the soft keys system here, where we have 6 different keys here that changes the structure of these keys up top. So if you're number 1, you're going to get all your transport controls up here with these soft touch buttons up here. You can control 3 different DAWs at the same time. You've got direct plugin control. I think it's more efficient in terms of controlling plugins. It doesn't have a typical jog shuttle wheel. It works much like a mouse to help you navigate around your projects, but other functions like, nudging segments in your timelines, all kinds of things you can do. So it's a very intelligent controller here. It gives you a lot more direct control with the controller. Now, by comparison, this is a more traditional approach to a DAW controller and certainly a workhorse. This is all metal construction and it's quite a large device, so you're definitely going to need some space. But it does have this big meter bridge here, so if you're used to working with a traditional mixer and you want to have your audio levels right in front of you, you've got all that right in front of your eyes right here. Like I said, it is a bigger device, but that gives you a little bit more space in between the faders. Like you see, you have the dedicated transport controls, dedicated jog shuttle wheel here. And like I said, you've got the standard solo, mute, record, and select buttons here, along with dedicated rotary encoders. So, but the other thing about this device is it's designed to be expandable. Now, they both are. With the UF8, if you want to expand this to more tracks, you just buy more UF8s. That's just how it works. And you get some redundancy in terms of the plug-in section here and these controls here because you're buying a full unit. With Icon, what they do is they actually have extenders as well for this device, where basically you buy the main unit and then you can buy extenders, which is just the fader portion of the controller. Maybe a little bit more efficient in terms of expandability, where you have one main unit and then you can expand it. I believe it's up to 64 tracks, but they are both expandable. Really comes down to what you're doing, but two premium controllers here with, I think, two really different philosophies. Well, as you can see, there's a dock controller for every occasion, whether you're a beginner or a pro, whether you've got a small studio or a big studio, or you're considering affordability, portability, programmability, or expandability, there's a dock controller for you. It really comes down to what you need. You got to do the research. Hopefully I presented enough information here to give you an idea on the differences between the different types of controllers out there. Some of them even have a tighter knit relationship with a specific dock. It just comes down to what you need. Now I'll put a link in the description for all the available controllers. Long McQuade has all the information that you need on their website, so I'll make sure to link it down below, so definitely check it out. So the last question that needs to be answered is, if you are building a home studio, when's a good time to get a dock controller? So if you're in the process of building a home studio, you know there's a lot of steps to this, a lot of gear to acquire. But when's a good time to get a dock controller? Now, I really think you need to address the need to haves first. Hopefully you've got your computer sorted. You're going to need to know what DAW you're using. You're going to have to hear everything, so that's going to require speaker monitors and or headphones. Now you need to drive that audio in and out, so that's going to require an audio interface. Now hopefully you got your main instrument sorted. If you actually play an instrument, or if you're recording vocals, you're going to need some microphones. But if you've got all that in place and now you're looking to elevate your studio, I think you should consider sound treating your room. That's definitely something you can do yourself. I've got a lot of resources here on my channel. I'll put links in the description. But if you got that all set up, a dock controller is sort of a device that really elevates your studio. I remember when I got my first one, it really put studio in the word home studio, having that sort of console or mixer in the center of the room and the speaker monitors there. It just felt right. And there's a lot of practical uses for a dock controller. That hands-on tactile control really brings another element to your mixing. So I think once you've got the need to haves in place and your room is starting to sound a little bit better, I think that's the time to consider a dock controller. Well, there you have my dock controllers guide. I certainly hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have any questions at all about any of the gear here, just let me know in the comment section. Do you have a favorite? Any thoughts at all? Let me know in the comments. A big thank you goes out to Long McQuade once again for supplying the additional controllers and helping me bring this video to you. If you want any more information about any of these products or anything we've discussed, long-mcquade.com is your place to go. And if you're in Canada, well, 80 plus stores across the country. Why don't you drop in and say hi and tell them the Lonely Rocker sent you. Anyways, if you really did enjoy this video, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that bell. If you want to do a deeper dive with me, I'm on Patreon, I have affiliate links, and I even have merch. All that information is down below. But the most important thing is to check out another video. I've got one waiting for you right here. And remember, you don't need a band to rock and roll. And I look forward to seeing you again in another video.
Oh, holy shit, I hope Santa's watching.
Lonely Rocker.
Dude, they hooked him up with some cool toys across the board, from the low end to the mid-range. Man, those high end, like, I wish I had the extra change to throw at those.
Solid metal beast, that last one there. You slap some wheels on that thing, you drive it to the gig.
Well, for me, like the Nano on the low end really appealed to me, because considering its price range and its expandability, like to be able to expand them and load a couple of them together would be something that, like, I'd want it to grow with my needs.
Yeah.
Where the mid-range, the PreSonuses, actually kind of fit my current needs. Like, you give me 8 channels of motorized faders at a reasonable price.
Done.
Sold.
Now, Ron, you got to pass that quiz first before you get the diploma. So don't forget, quiz coming up.
Yes, Angified University.
But don't worry, we graded on a curve, so it works.
Well, it's a musical curve,
Oh, yeah.
so you should be good.
Good stuff.
So that one came from @LonelyRocker
Mhm.
over on YouTube. Great freshy channel. Another one like Guitar Night. It's got a bunch of guitar stuff in there.
Oh yeah, we will hit that up again for sure. But I think for tonight we actually went past midnight, so we're gonna have to call it before they call the cops on us over here.
Yeah, and we're gonna roll that last one into Drum Night. Like Drum Night is coming.
We won't forget.
Any drummers out there, hit me up.
Mm-hmm.
We want to talk to you.
Yes, Drum Night's coming. Drum Night. It'll be part 2 or part 3 at this point. I think it's part 2.
It'll be a bang.
It'll be a bang. Wait a sec, I got you. Couple of those.
You got to do that when I say a joke.
Got to find them all though. There it is. But we will do that the next time. But in the meantime, thanks everybody for coming out and in joining us for talking some shh IT with Glenn and Tony.
We talked as quietly as we could.
We did. We kept it down, especially after midnight. Got to keep it down. Don't want them to call the cops. But thanks for coming, everybody. We'll see you next time.
Night, everyone.
We cover digital audio workstations and music tools. We explore theory, gear in 82. How to arrange, compose, and the art of arranging. Taking a look at AI and how the times have changed. On a PC or a Mac and even with a mobile device. We'll be talking about it all every Thursday night. From software to plugins and sys that entice. Dive deep into tech and let creativity take flight. Talkin IT. We're talking IT. Come and join in and have some fun. It's highly educational with a lot to learn. From bedroom producers to seasoned pros, we're breaking it down so knowledge grows. Whether you're a DJ or a beat making wizard, we got the tips and tricks to make your sound sizzle. Mixing and mastering, that's our jam. With the tutorials and tips on how much rap. Get the best quality from your setup and gear. Tune in every week and lend us your ear. We're talking IT. Come and join in and have some fun. It's highly educational with a lot to learn. We're talking IT. We're talking IT. Every Thursday night on Angified.
I love you, oh loves. Do you have those? Do you wanna share them with me? I love you, oh loves. Oh, do you have those? I'd like to share mine with you. Can we share? Are you gonna spread love or hate? Are you gonna spread love or hate? Are you gonna spread love or hate?